Billy Bunter of Greyfriars School by Frank Richards. Read by Martin Jarvis.
Bunter?
Mr. Quelch's voice was not loud, but deep. It was heard distinctly by all ears in the removed form room at Greyfriars School, excepting apparently one pair of very fat ears. Billy Bunter did not answer. It was the second time Quelch had called his name. Quelch seldom had to call on any boy in the remove twice. There was a stirring in the remove as fellows turned their heads to look at Bunter, wondering why he did not reply. It was a warm afternoon. Outside the sun shone from a blue sky. Within, it was a little stuffy and a little drowsy. Mr. Quelch was expounding English history to his form, but seldom had the Greyfriars Remove been less interested in the sayings and doings of earlier generations.
Bunter.
Quelch's voice was a little louder and a little deeper. "Third time of asking," murmured Bob Cherry, and some of the juniors grinned. Bob did not intend that whisper to reach Quelch's ears, but that afternoon Quelch's ears seemed to be as sharp as his eyes.
Cherry?
He rapped. "Oh," Bob jumped as his name was shot at him like a bullet. "Oh, yes, sir."
Were you talking in class, Cherry?
"Oh, no. Yes, I...
Take 50 lines for talking in class, Cherry."
"Oh, yes, sir." Nobody else ventured to whisper. Quelch evidently was getting shirty. Harry Wharton, the captain of the remove, who had opened his lips to breathe a warning to Bunter, closed them again. Johnny Bull, who had lifted a foot to give the fat junior a warning shove under the desks, dropped it to the floor. Quelch's gimlet eye was glittering, and no fellow wanted to draw it specially upon himself.
"Bunter!"
For the fourth time, Henry Samuel Quelch called upon the fattest member of his form, and this time his voice was not only both loud and deep, but very loud and very deep. It woke the echoes of the form room, yet, strange to relate, it produced no effect whatever on Billy Bunter. William George Bunter sat silent, staring indifferently at Mr. Quelch. A ray of sunlight from the window was reflected on his big spectacles, making them gleam almost like headlights. No doubt that was why Mr. Quelch could not see that Bunter's eyes were closed behind those big glasses. To all appearances, Bunter was staring him straight in the face, but appearances are sometimes deceptive. Billy Bunter had gone to sleep sitting up, though the gleam of his spectacles gave him the appearance of being wide awake. Fellows sitting near him knew how the matter stood. Fellows further off didn't. And Quelch didn't.
"Bunter!"
Quelch almost roared. Still Bunter did not reply. Still he did not stir. But, as if in answer to his form master, a sound came from Bunter. Bunter generally snored when he slept. In the removed dormitory, Bunter's deep snore was wont to rumble on through the night, like the unending melody in Wagnerian music, but not perhaps quite so musical. Mr. Quelch gave a convulsive start. The truth dawned on him. He realized that Bunter's eyes were shut behind those gleaming glasses, that Bunter had fallen asleep in class.
"Bless my soul,"
gasped Mr. Quelch.
"The boy's asleep,"
exclaimed Mr. Quelch. There was a subdued chuckle in the remove. It died away at once as Mr. Quelch's gimlet eye gleamed round.
"Skinner, awaken that boy,"
commanded Mr. Quelch. "Certainly, sir," said Skinner. Skinner reached over to Bunter to awaken him. Harry Wharton or Bob Cherry would have given the fat owl a shake, but Skinner was not a good-natured fellow. Skinner's method of awakening Bunter was to take a fat ear between finger and thumb and pull. He took a good grip on Bunter's ear. There was plenty of room for it, and pulled. It awakened Bunter. It awakened him quite suddenly. Billy Bunter came out of the land of dreams with a jump and a yell.
"Youroo! Yow! Yow! Lego my ear, you beast! Crikey! Wow! I say, you fellas, yow! Ow! I say, 'tain't rising bell, yow!
Bunter jerked his fat ear away from Skinner, rubbed it, and blinked round him dizzily, apparently under the impression that he was in bed in the Remove dormitory. "Ha ha! Ha ha ha!" yelled the Remove.
Bunter?
Thundered Mr. Quelch.
Oh, law!
The owl of the Remove realized where he was. He blinked at Mr. Quelch in terror.
Oh, I say, I wasn't asleep, sir. I heard every word you were saying, sir, every syllable.
You were asleep in class, Bunter.
Oh, no, sir, I had my eyes shut because I listen better with my eyes shut, sir. I never missed a word, sir.
Very well, said Mr. Quelch in a grinding voice.
I was speaking on the subject of the Royal Oak, Bunter. Tell me what you know of the Royal Oak.
Bunter blinked at him. So far as his hazy memory served him, Quelch had been droning on about the reign of King Charles when he nodded off to sleep. He was unaware that, while he slumbered, Quelch had got to the Battle of Worcester and the escape of Charles II by hiding in the branches of an oak tree, thereafter called the Royal Oak. Of that Royal Oak Billy Bunter knew nothing at all. Nevertheless, the name was familiar to him. He had seen it on a signboard many a time and oft.
Did you say the Royal Oak, sir?
He stammered. Really, he was not quite sure that he'd heard aright. A public house was a most extraordinary thing for Quelch to be telling his form about.
I did,
snapped Mr. Quelch.
Do you know what the Royal Oak is, Bunter?
Oh, yes, sir, certainly. Of course, I've never been in it, sir.
You've never been in it?
Repeated Mr. Quelch blankly.
Oh, no, sir, it's out of bounds.
Out of bounds?
Mr. Quelch gazed at him.
Bunter, is this intended for impertinence or what? Answer me at once. What is the Royal Oak?
A pub, sir. I mean a public house,
amended Bunter hastily. Ha 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 ha! Shrieked the Remove. They really couldn't help it.
Silence!
Thundered Mr. Quelch.
Silence in the form. Bunter, how dare you make me such an answer?
You asked me, sir. It really is a pub, sir. I mean a public house, sir. All the fellows know. Didn't you know, sir?
Bunter, after class you will write out 100 times that King Charles II hid in the Royal Oak after the Battle of Worcester.
But, sir...
Silence.
But
If you say another word, Bunter, I shall cane you.
Bunter did not say another word. Quelch was looking positively dangerous. Billy Bunter suppressed his indignant feelings, but his indignation was deep. What was the use of a fellow answering questions correctly in the history class if he got 100 lines for giving the right answer? It was a resentful and indignant owl that sat through the remainder of the history lesson, till at length the welcome hour struck, and the Remove were dismissed. "I say, you fellows, how," asked Bob Cherry, "how did Bunter know that we had a jug of lemonade?" And the famous 5 chuckled.
Oh, really, Cherry?
Billy Bunter blinked into number 1 study.
I didn't know, but I'll have some, old chap.
And Bunter rolled in. The famous 5, Harry Wharton, Frank Nugent, Bob Cherry, Johnny Bull, and Harry Jamset Ramsing were looking and feeling a good deal more merry and bright than they had looked and felt in the history class. Frank Nugent had brewed lemonade in number 1 study, and lemonade was cooling and comforting on a warm afternoon. The chums of the Remove were disposing of it before they went down to the nets for cricket practice, when Bunter happened. "Go it, old fat man," said Bob hospitably. "Trot out your best jewelled goblet for Bunter, Frankie."
"That's all right, you fellows,"
said Bunter cheerfully.
"I can make do with a jug if you chaps don't want any more."
Without waiting to ascertain whether the chaps wanted any more, Bunter grasped the lemonade jug in a fat hand and tilted it to a capacious mouth. A gurgling sound followed. 5 pairs of eyes fixed expressively on the owl of the Remove, as he thus proceeded to dispose of more than half of the total supply of lemonade. Bunter did not heed them. In fact, he did not see them. When Billy Bunter was refreshing the inner Bunter, his fat thoughts were concentrated on the matter in hand. He gurgled and was happy. "Don't mind us, Bunter," said Frank Nugent with withering sarcasm, when the fat junior paused for breath.
"Oh, righto, old chap,"
answered Bunter. Sarcasm on Bunter was a sheer waste. He drank again. A little breathless, he set down an empty jug and blinked at 5 staring faces. Harry Wharton laughed. "That's the lot," he said. "Come on, you men, time we got down to the cricket."
I say, you fellows, hold on a minute, said Bunter hastily. I say, I want to put in some cricket practice this afternoon.
"Come on, then," said Bob. "Harry will send you down a few, and you'll stop them. Perhaps."
"The perhapsfulness will be terrific, in my idiotic opinion,"
grinned the nabob of Banipur, otherwise known as Hari Jamset Ram Singh.
But I say, Quelch said I'm to take in my lines at 6. That rather knocks on the head my getting any time at the nets, said Bunter. "It's a bit sickening when a fellow's so keen on it. I've a jolly good mind not to do those lines for Quelch."
"You'd better have a jollier good one to do them," grinned Bob Cherry.
"Well, look at the injustice of it," said Bunter warmly. "I give him the right answer, and then he goes and gives me lines."
"Ha ha, ha ha!" yelled the famous 5.
"I fancy Quelch is wrong, but you can't argue with a beak. He'll expect those lines. How many are you fellows going to do for me?" asked Bunter.
"None," answered 5 voices in unison.
"Well, I like that," said the fat owl hotly. "You fellows make out that I dodge games practice."
"No making out about it," growled Johnny Bull. "You do dodge games practice, you fat slacker, and you've been whopped for it."
"Well, I'm not dodging it today, and it ain't a compulsory day either,"
snorted Bunter.
"It's pretty rotten for a fellow to have to stick indoors writing lines when he wants to be at the nets. 'Tain't much of an import if we whack it out all round."
Billy Bunter blinked appealingly at 5 faces, one after another, through his big spectacles. Harry Wharton and Co. hesitated, but Bunter had touched the right chord. If the lazy fat owl was keen on games practice for once, instead of frowsting in a study armchair as usual, the famous 5 were the fellows to give him encouragement. "Oh, let's," said Bob. Bob Cherry was always good-natured, and there was no doubt that he was pleased to see signs of amendment in the fat slacker of the Remove. It was not exactly unknown in the Greyfriars Remove for fellows to lend one another a helping hand with impositions, or impots, as they were known, and Bunter's really seemed a deserving case. Bob looked round at his friends, and Wharton, Nugent, and Harry Singh nodded, and Johnny Bull gave a grunt. So it was settled.
"That's right," said Bunter. "I'll start the rotten thing, and you fellows can carry on, see?"
And Billy Bunter picked up a pen, dipped it into the ink, and wrote the first line.
"Pile in and get on with it," he said. "I want to get down to the nets, you know."
The famous 5 got on with it. It was only necessary to scrawl in a sprawling round hand to make the writing sufficiently like Bunter's. Many hands made light work. Bunter's impot was finished in record time. The Owl of the Remove gathered up the sheets with great satisfaction.
"I'll cut down to Quelch's study with this. Don't you fellows wait for me. Get down and change for cricket. I'll join you in a few ticks."
Harry Wharton and Co. went down to the changing-room. There they expected to see Billy Bunter roll in a few minutes. But Billy Bunter did not roll in. So they went down to junior nets, expecting Bunter to follow. They were prepared to take quite a lot of trouble with Bunter, since he was, for once in his fat life, showing keenness for the summer game. But as it happened, they did not have to take any trouble with Bunter. The fat junior did not follow them down to the nets. Billy Bunter's sudden enthusiasm for the summer game seemed to have petered out as suddenly as it had arisen. It had, in fact, lasted exactly as long as was required to get his lines done. Stand and deliver.
"Oh, really, Cherry?"
What have you got there?
"Oh, nothing, old chap. I say, you fellows, let a fellow pass. I'm in rather a hurry."
But the famous 5 of the Remove did not let Billy Bunter pass. They were coming upstairs as Billy Bunter came down. That Billy Bunter had something hidden under his jacket was a fact that leapt to the eye. Bunter's garments were tight. There was really hardly enough room in them for Bunter. His ample proportions filled them almost to bursting point. On Bunter's fat person there was a bulge, a very distinct bulge, a bulge that few could have failed to notice. Harry Wharton and Co. had noticed it at once. Bunter was clearly in a hurry. His movements generally resembled those of a snail, a tired snail, but he had come pattering rapidly down the upper stairs, and he came across the middle landing at a run. but hurried as he was, Bunter had to stop.
I say, you fellows, no larks. I've got to see Quelch.
"How odd, we've just seen Quelch go out. You've missed him," said the captain of the Remove, shaking his head.
Oh, has Quelch gone out, Wharton? I don't mean Quelch, I mean the head,
stammered Bunter. And Billy Bunter made an effort to push through the row of juniors. Then he gave a startled yelp as the bulge under his jacket slipped. He clutched wildly at the hidden article to save it and crammed it back under his jacket, but not before the other fellows had seen that it was a jam jar. "Ha ha!" roared Bob Cherry. "Are you taking the head a pot of jam for his tea?"
Oh, yes, no,
"Whose is it?" asked Johnny Bull.
Mine,
squeaked Bunter indignantly.
Think I've got somebody else's pot of jam? No, not that this is a pot of jam I've got here, you know. It's a bottle of ink.
"Smithy had jam in one of his gorgeous parcels today," remarked Bob Cherry. "You fat brigand, that's Smithy's jam."
"'Tain't," roared Bunter. "Think I touched Smithy's jam? I never knew Smithy had jam. I never saw Trotter hand him the parcel. I never knew he had a parcel at all, and it certainly wasn't in his study when I looked. Will you let a fellow pass? I've got to see Quelch. That is, the head. They're waiting."
"Hello," cried Bob Cherry, as another junior appeared on the lower staircase coming up. "This way, Smithy, old man." Herbert Vernon Smith, the bounder of the Remove, glanced up at the group on the middle landing. "What's up?" he asked. "Daylight raid," answered Bob. "If you had a pot of jam in your study, you'd better cut along and see if it's still there." "What?" Smithy joined the group on the middle landing, and his eye went at once to the bulge under Bunter's jacket. "You fat villain, have you been bagging my jam?"
No, I haven't got anything under my jacket, Smithy. I mean, it's a bottle of ink. Ow, let go my neck, you beast!"
howled Bunter, as the bounder of Greyfriars grasped him.
I tell you, I haven't got your jam. If you can't take a fellow's word, let go!
Shake, shake, shake. Vernon Smith had a sinewy arm. He shook Bunter and shook him again and again, and the fat owl sagged in his grasp like a plump jelly. He clasped his fat hands over the bulge in his jacket to keep the hidden loot from slipping out. Shake, shake.
"Oh, ow!"
spluttered Bunter.
"Oh, let go! I say!"
Shake, shake, shake. Smithy, grinning, put his beef into it. The fat owl tottered in his grasp, gurgling for breath. There was a sudden bump as the jar of jam slipped at last from under Bunter's jacket and rolled on the landing.
"That's my jam," gasped Bunter. "It came from Bunter Court this morning. You leave my jam alone."
Herbert Vernon Smith, releasing the fat owl, stooped to pick up his pot of jam. Billy Bunter made a dive for it. There was a sudden crash as two heads suddenly met. Vernon Smith gave a yell of anguish and sat down suddenly on the landing. Bunter reeled from the shock. "Ha, ha, ha!" shrieked the famous five. "Oh, scissors!" gasped the bounder. He sat with his hand to his head, dizzy from the crash. For a moment or two, he was out of it. Billy Bunter did not lose that moment or two. His bullet head was harder than Smithy's, apparently. Perhaps there wasn't much in it to damage. Bunter clutched up the disputed pot of jam and jumped for the lower stairs. Vernon Smith staggered to his feet, his hand still to his head. His face was red with wrath. "By gum, I'll burst him all over Greyfriars," he gasped, and he rushed in pursuit of the fleeing fat owl. "Oh, my hat!" gurgled Bob Cherry. "If they run into a beak or a pree, there'll be a row." Smithy, with his usual recklessness, was not thinking of masters or prefects. With a bump on his head and a pain therein, he just wanted to get hold of Billy Bunter. Bunter, on the other hand, did not want to be got hold of. He remembered as he careered away that Wharton had mentioned that Quelch had gone out. Quelch's study, therefore, was a safe retreat. Even the reckless bounder wouldn't venture to pursue him into a master's study. It was now a case of any port in a storm, and Billy Bunter flew for Quelch's study like a homing pigeon. Smithy charged into Master's Passage just in time to hear Quelch's study door slam ahead of him. Mr. Prout, the master of the fifth form, looked out of his study doorway and fixed his eyes with grim disapproval on the breathless crimson bounder. "Well," he rapped, "what do you want here, Vernon Smith?" Smithy backed round the corner without replying to that question. Billy Bunter had found a safe refuge, and Vernon Smith had to leave him to it. Mr. Quelch stared as if he could hardly believe his eyes. Quelch had gone out for a walk in the quad after class, as he often did. It was very pleasant taking the air under the shady old branches of the ancient Greyfriars elms. It braced Quelch after his labours in the remove room with a slightly troublesome form. But on Quelch's study table lay a pile of form papers that had to be corrected. So, reluctantly but dutifully, Quelch at length retraced his steps to the house and came to his study. He opened the study door and was about to enter when he stopped dead, his eyes fixed on a fat figure in his armchair. Billy Bunter did not for the moment see his form master. Bunter was busy. Bunter had sought that safe refuge simply to escape from the wrathful smithy, and he was safe, till Quelch came in. Sitting in Mr. Quelch's armchair, Bunter had opened that pot of jam. Unluckily, he had no spoon. Bunter liked a tablespoon when dealing with jam, but on Quelch's table lay an ivory paper knife which answered the purpose fairly well. With that implement, Billy Bunter scooped out jam and conveyed it to a large mouth. And chunk after chunk of delicious plum jam followed the downward path. In those ecstatic moments, Bunter forgot Smithy, and even forgot Quelch. There was still a spot of jam at the bottom of the jar, and it wasn't easy to extract it with a paper knife. Bunter was too absorbed to notice the faint sound of the door handle turning. As Mr. Quelch stood at the open door, his eyes fixed on Bunter, the owl of the remove did not look up. He carried on with the important task in hand. For a long, long moment, the remove master stood quite still, gazing at that happy member of his form. He realized that his eyes were not deceiving him. Actually, a boy of his form was seated in his armchair in his study, scraping out a jam jar with a sticky paper knife, sticky fingers, sticky face, and a general aspect of stickiness. Quelch found his voice.
"Bunter?"
"Oh, crikey!"
Bunter jumped. In fact, he bounded. He was out of the armchair with a speed that was marvellous, considering the weight he had to lift. The jam jar rolled on the hearthrug. The sticky paper knife dropped on the carpet. Billy Bunter stood blinking at his form master, with his eyes almost popping with terror through his spectacles.
"Bunter, what are you doing here?"
"Oh, I was waiting for you, sir. I came to ask a question, sir, about jam. I mean about history, sir. I forgot whether Magna Carta was signed by Smithy. I mean King Charles IV, sir, or..."
"I find you devouring jam in my study,"
said Mr. Quelch in a deep, rumbling voice.
"Did you purloin that jam below stairs, Bunter?"
"Oh, no, sir. I had it in a parcel from home, sir. Smithy got it this morning. I got it this morning."
"I think I understand, Bunter. You have purloined that comestible from another remove boy's study."
"Oh, no, sir. It wasn't Smithy's. If Smithy had any jam, it's still in his study. I came to ask you, sir, to tell me, if you'll be so kind, whether Magna Carta..."
"That will do, Bunter."
"Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Can I go now, sir?"
"You may not, Bunter."
"Oh, law!"
"I hardly know how to deal with you, Bunter,"
said Mr. Quelch with slow, grim thoughtfulness.
"You have been punished on several occasions for purloining food. Punishment appears to have no effect. You seem no better for even a severe caning."
Oh, no, sir. I don't think caning does me any good, sir."
"Once already this term, Bunter, you have been caned for taking a pie from the pantry."
"Oh, that was all a mistake, sir,"
groaned Bunter.
"On that occasion, Bunter, I gave you 3 strokes with the cane. It has not caused you to mend your ways. I shall not give you 3 strokes now, Bunter."
"Oh, good. Thank you, sir. Can I go now?"
"I shall give you 6.
"Oh, crumbs!"
Mr. Quelch picked up a cane from the study table. Billy Bunter eyed that proceeding with deep apprehension. Mr. Quelch pointed to a chair with the cane.
"Bend over that chair, Bunter."
"Oh, crikey!"
Billy Bunter, in the lowest spirits, bent over the chair. He gave an anticipatory wriggle as he waited for the descending cane. He did not have to wait long. "Swipe!"
"Euro!"
roared Bunter. "Swipe!"
"Ow! Oh!
Swipe! Swipe! Swipe!
Yow! Ow! Ow!
Swipe! Mr. Quelch seemed to put extra beef in the last swipe. It fairly rang on Bunter's tight trousers. It cracked like a rifle shot. Louder still sounded the anguished yell of the hapless owl. Yow!
Now leave my study, said Mr. Quelch. And I warn you, Bunter, that you have very nearly exhausted my patience. Go.
And Billy Bunter went. He suppressed his feelings till Quelch's door closed on him. But as he went wriggling down the passage, his anguish found voice. Yow! Ow! Ow! Oh, here you are. Herbert Vernon Smith was waiting for him at the corner. Now, you fat villain. Yow! Wow! The bounder stared at him, dropped the foot he had lifted, and laughed. You look as if you'd had enough, he remarked. Yow! Ow! Ow! Bunter certainly looked as if he had had enough. He felt as if he had had too much. And the bounder kindly let it go at that, and Billy Bunter wriggled on his way, unkicked. Hello. What's the joke, old fat man? Billy Bunter did not answer Bob Cherry at first, but he grinned a grin so wide that it extended from one of Bunter's fat ears to the other. A good many eyes turned on the owl of the Remove. Bunter evidently was in possession of a joke, a great joke, a joke that made him quite hilarious. It was morning, and the Remove had been out in break. Now they were gathering at the form room door for third school. Bunter said, Quelch may be going to get a surprise, or he may not. I don't know anything about it, of course, he added astutely. I've been standing here a long time, practically all through break, so if any fellow got in at the form room window, couldn't have been me, could it? You howling ass, said Peter Todd. What did you get in at the form room window for? I haven't been in the form room. So far as I know, the window wasn't left open, and if it was, I never climbed in. You jolly well couldn't, said Skinner. Too much to lift. Of course I couldn't, without a bunk-up, agreed Bunter. And Dabney of the Fourth never gave me a bunk-up either. Ha, 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 they all roared. What has that frumptuous fathead been up to? Asked Frank Nugent. Didn't Quelch give you enough in his study yesterday? Asking for more? I haven't been up to anything, said Bunter. If Quelch gets a surprise when he goes into the form room, I don't know anything about it. How could I, when I haven't been in the form room in break? It was something with chalk in it, said Vernon Smith with a chuckle. Bunter jumped. Chalk? How do you know, you beast? I haven't touched any chalk. Don't you want Quelch to know you've been handling chalk? Chuckled the bounder. No fear. He might think I chalked on the blackboard. You know what a suspicious beast he is. Then you'd better wipe the clues off your waistcoat, old fat bean. Ha ha! Yelled the juniors, as Billy Bunter cast a startled blink downward at his extensive and well-filled waistcoat. On that garment were several smudges of chalk, which leapt to all eyes excepting Bunter's. Oh, I hadn't noticed that. Billy Bunter extracted his handkerchief from his pocket and hurriedly wiped away the traces of chalk. He cast an anxious blink along the corridor, but Quelch was not yet in sight, and the fat owl breathed more freely. So, you've been chalking something on the blackboard in the form room, you fat ass? Asked Nugent. Somebody may have, said Bunter. After all, lots of fellows think Quelch a beast, don't they? Somebody may have chalked it on the blackboard, for all I know. You utter ass, said Harry Wharton. If you've chalked anything of that kind on the blackboard, Quelch will go off at the deep end. Let him. He won't know who did it, chuckled Bunter. I never signed my name to it, you know. Besides, I never did it. Hello. Here comes Henry, murmured Bob. Mr. Quelch appeared at the corner of the corridor. He gave the assembled juniors a sharp glance, and Bob wondered for a dismayed moment whether his keen ears had caught the word Henry. However, the Remove Master rustled up the passage to the door of the form room and unlocked the same to admit his form. The Remove marched in and took their places. Mr. Quelch went to his high desk. The blackboard, which had been used in second school, stood on its easel facing the form. What was chalked on it was therefore visible to all the Remove, but not, for the moment, to their form master. All eyes turned on the blackboard. Then there was a sudden gust of laughter. The Removites really couldn't help it. What they saw was an inscription in large capital letters. Quelch is a beast, and beast was spelt B-E-E-S-T. Ha 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 ha! Woke the echoes of the form room. Billy Bunter grinned a wide grin. Bunter was quite pleased by this tribute. All the Remove were laughing. That inscription on the blackboard seemed to have taken them by storm. But Quelch wouldn't laugh when he saw it. Quelch would be in a fearful rage, all the more because there was no clue to the writer of that crushing inscription. Ha 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 ha! Roared the Remove again. Hooted Bunter. Mr. Quelch stared at his form with knitting brows.
"Silence!" he thundered. "What is the meaning of this?"
And he whisked round to the blackboard to see what had caused that burst of hilarity. For a moment he stared at it. Then he turned to his class.
"Bunter?"
His eyes fixed on the owl of the Remove.
Oh, crikey!
Gasped Bunter in alarm. Why Quelch picked on him was an absolute mystery to the owl of the Remove.
"Bunter, you have done this."
I wouldn't, sir. I don't think you're a beast, sir, like the other fellows.
"Bunter!" thundered Mr. Quelch. "It was you, Bunter, who chalked this unexampled impertinence on the blackboard. Bunter, you entered the form room surreptitiously during break by the window."
Oh, Lord! I never knew you saw me, sir, groaned Bunter. Oh, scissors!
"I did not see you, Bunter."
Oh, then I didn't do it, sir. I was in the tuck shop at the time. Mrs. Mimble was serving me with a jam tart, sir.
"I shall not cane you again, Bunter," said Mr. Quelch, breathing hard. "You will be detained for the half-holiday this afternoon. I shall set you a detention task, and you will remain in the form room until you have finished it."
But I never...
"Silence!"
almost roared Mr. Quelch. Billy Bunter quaked into silence. Mr. Quelch took a duster and wiped the blackboard. Why Quelch had picked on him, Bunter did not know. It seemed like magic to Bunter. It was one more proof that Quelch was a beast. Billy Bunter blinked at the captain of the Remove in the doorway of the changing room.
I say, I'm booked for this afternoon, said Bunter dismally. I've got to go into the form room at 2, and Quelch is going to give me a paper to do. I shouldn't wonder if it's deponent verbs. It would be like him. And you fellows are going to play cricket. And now, look here, Harry, old chap. I want to play cricket this afternoon. You know how keen I am on the game.
Oh, quite, agreed Harry Wharton. Very keen when you want other fellows to do your lines. Not at other times.
Well, I'm frightfully keen now, declared Bunter. I suppose you've made up the 11 to play the 4th at Friardale this afternoon?
Well, sort of, said Harry, laughing. As we're due on Littleside in 10 minutes, I shouldn't be likely to leave it very much later.
Well, it's not too late to make a change in the team,
suggested Bunter.
You're not much of a judge of a man's form, old fellow, and I'm blessed if I know why the fellow's made you skipper. But you've got sense enough to leave out a dud and put in a better man if you can get one, what?
Oh, quite. And where's the better man?
Here. Now, if you go to Quelch and explain that you simply can't leave me out because it's a pretty tough match, Quelch will let me off detention, see? I don't want to go down to Friardale because Uncle Clegg's got jolly good ices. No, nothing of the kind. Now, I'm fearfully keen on cricket. Easy enough to make room for me in the team. You can leave out Cherry. He's not much good.
Hello. Who's not much good? Cried Bob Cherry.
Oh, you, old chap. Look at the way you bat,
argued Bunter.
Or there's Toddy. No good at all, if you don't mind my mentioning it, Toddy.
Peter Todd gave his fat study-mate an expressive look, but no other reply.
Look here, old chap, leave out any man you like, said Bunter in a burst of generosity. Only put me in, see?
I see, assented the captain of the Remove. And now, if you've finished your funny turn, roll away, old barrel.
You won't play me? Demanded
Bunter. Not at cricket, old fat bean. When we play the 4th at marbles or hopscotch, I'll think of you.
Beast! I mean, look here, dear old fellow. I don't want detention this afternoon. I'd rather play cricket than do deponent verbs.
What a jolly good reason for picking a man for a match, remarked Bob Cherry. Ha, 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 ha. They all laughed. Now you've finished, Bunter.
I haven't finished.
Yes, you have. Give him a prod with your bat, Johnny.
Yeah, ow, you!
Squealed Bunter, as Johnny Bull's bat established contact, and he departed from the changing-room doorway in haste. The fat junior rolled away in an indignant and morose frame of mind. It was true that Bunter was thinking more of the ices at Uncle Clegg's tuck shop in the village of Friardale than of the great summer game. He had borrowed £0.50 from Lord Mauleverer, specially to be expended on those ices. With the selfishness to which Bunter was sadly accustomed, the other fellows didn't seem to care a bean whether he had ices that afternoon or not. Billy Bunter suddenly made up his fat mind and rolled away towards the gates. He resolved to chance it with Quelch. 2 o'clock was striking from the clock tower, at which hour he was due for detention, so there was no time to waste. Bunter rolled away from the house, and he rolled rapidly. Billy Bunter reached the old arched stone gateway where the gates stood wide open on a half-holiday. And there for a moment Billy Bunter hesitated and halted. Billy Bunter was not, perhaps, very bright, but he was bright enough to realize that chancing it with Quelch was a risky business. He hesitated, but it is well said that he who hesitates is lost. Billy Bunter rolled out of the gates and took the lane to Friardale. And as Bunter rolled out of the gates, Henry Samuel Quelch looked out of the big window in the form-room corridor. He was ready to let Bunter into the form-room and see him started on that detention paper, which, as the fat owl dreaded, had deponent verbs in it. Quelch was ready, but Bunter, like Ethelred of old, was unready. Bunter was not to be seen, till Quelch looked from the window, expecting to see him loitering on his way to the house. Even Quelch did not expect a fellow to be keen and eager for detention on a summer's afternoon. But he did not see Bunter loitering. He beheld in the distance an unmistakable fat figure rolling out of the gates. Quelch stared at that fat figure as it disappeared. His grim face grew grimmer, and his gimlet eyes gleamed. Bunter, due for detention, was walking out of the school, as if free as a bird that afternoon.
"Upon my word,"
breathed Mr. Quelch. 2 or 3 minutes later, Henry Samuel Quelch, complete with hat and walking-stick, was striding down to the gates, his long legs fairly whisking.
"Hold on, you!"
Billy Bunter gave quite a jump at that command. He was hurrying down Friardale Lane as fast as his little fat legs could carry him. Danger behind, Bunter dreaded, but danger ahead never occurred to him, till he heard that gruff, unpleasant voice. He was nearly halfway to the village, in a spot where the overhanging branches of the trees on either side of the lane almost met overhead, a dusky, shady, solitary spot. In the dusk of the branches, Bunter did not notice a man who was leaning against a gnarled tree trunk chewing the stem of an empty black pipe. But the man noticed Bunter, eyed him with sharp, red-rimmed eyes as he came up, and as he drew abreast, stepped into his path, and bade him, "Hold on."
"Oh!"
gasped Bunter, startled. The man looked rather alarming. He was not well dressed. He wore a ragged coat too large for him, shabby trousers too small for him, and a battered bowler hat that only a very impecunious tramp would have picked up off a rubbish heap. He had little red-rimmed eyes with an unpleasant, threatening glint in them, and his nose had a queer twist sideways, as if it had had a hard knock at some time from a very vigorous fist, and had never been able to get its bearings since.
"Hold on,"
he repeated. He had a short, thick stick under one arm, and he let it slip down into his hand, and to Bunter's dismay and terror gave it a flourish in the air.
"Hold on, you fat covey. You hear me?"
"Oh, yes. I say, I'm in rather a hurry."
"So am I,"
answered the man with the twisted nose.
"Hand it over."
"Eh? Hand what over?"
"All you've got in your pockets, and sharp,"
snapped the tramp with another flourish of the stick. Billy Bunter blinked at him in horror.
I say, I've been disappointed about a postal order, and you rule."
The vagrant cast a swift glance up and down the lane. The winding road was full of turns, and someone might have been within 30 yards, for all Nosey Jenkins knew. He'd no time to waste on Bunter. He closed in on the fat schoolboy and grasped a fat shoulder with his left hand, flourishing the cudgel with his right, Bunter uttering a startled yelp as he was seized.
"If you don't want your silly head cracked, hand it over,"
snarled Nosey Jenkins.
"Oh,
Yelped Bunter, as Nosey gave him a smart tap on his fat head with the cudgel, as a warning of what was to come if he didn't hand it over.
Ow! Let go! Help! You
The next moment Bunter was sprawling on his back in the dust, and Nosey Jenkins, with his stick under his arm again, was groping through his pockets. Spluttered the fat owl.
Ow! Ow! Help!
Perhaps Mr. Jenkins expected a Greyfriars fellow to be liberally supplied with cash. But if he expected to make a good thing out of Billy Bunter, he was disappointed. Billy Bunter's financial resources were limited to Morley's half-crown, for which it was really hardly worth Mr. Jenkins' while to risk 3 months in the stone jug. Having found and annexed Morley's half-crown, Nosey proceeded through Bunter's other pockets in the hope of unearthing further plunder, a delusive hope. And as he groped and searched, a tall, angular figure came rapidly round a turn of the winding lane from the direction of Greyfriars School. Mr. Quelch's long legs were going strong. He expected to sight a fat back at every wind of the lane, and now, suddenly, he sighted Bunter, in rather unexpected circumstances, sprawling and spluttering in the dust, with a tough-looking tramp bending over him and going through his pockets. Mr. Quelch gave that scene one startled look, then his rapid walk broke into a more rapid run. He was on the scene in a twinkling. Nosey Jenkins, as he heard a rapid patter of footsteps, jumped up from Bunter and grasped his cudgel, glaring round. As he did so, Mr. Quelch's walking-stick came into play. Crack! It was a long, thick, heavy walking-stick, and it was wielded in a very sinewy hand. It cracked on Mr. Jenkins' battered bowler hat like a rifle shot. That hat, already almost a ruin, became a complete wreck. What remained of it was crushed on Nosey Jenkins' bullet head, and that bullet head rang and sang from the smite of the walking-stick. "You scoundrel!" exclaimed Mr. Quelch. "Strike me pink!" gasped Nosey, jumping back from another swipe of the walking-stick. "Oh, holy smoke! Whoa!" Mr. Quelch followed him up, still swiping. Nosey grasped his cudgel, but a swipe across his arm caused him to drop it with a howl of anguish. Another swipe landed on his ear, another on his already damaged head. It was too much for Nosey. He fairly turned tail and ran for it, having had enough. Then Mr. Quelch, with an angry sniff, turned back to Bunter. Nosey had terrified the owl of the Remove, but his form master seemed to terrify him still more. As he saw the expression on Quelch's face, the fat owl would almost have preferred Nosey of the two. He tottered to his feet, eyeing the Remove master with deep apprehension.
"Bunter?"
Quelch's voice was like suppressed thunder.
I forgot," began
Bunter.
"Return to the school this instant, Bunter."
"Oh, yes, sir."
It was a dispirited fat owl that trudged back to Greyfriars. Mr. Quelch did not speak a word more till they arrived at the school, and the fat owl rolled dismally into the Remove form room.
"I hardly know how to deal with you, Bunter," said Mr. Quelch. "I shall consider the matter very carefully. In the meantime, I warn you that if you leave this form room before your task is completed, you will be reported to your headmaster for a flogging."
"Oh!"
gasped Bunter. And with that, Mr. Quelch left him to it. Anybody seen Bunter? Harry Wharton was asking that question up and down and round about. He was not looking or feeling very patient. After class, a Greyfriars man had plenty to do without wasting his valuable time looking for a fat owl who was not to be found. But Mr. Quelch had requested his head boy to send Bunter to his study, so there was no choice in the matter for Harry Wharton. He had to find Bunter. "Hello, want Bunter?" asked Bob Cherry, as the captain of the Remove looked into the rag and asked again. "No fear, Quelch does," growled Wharton. "I can't find the fat ass." "Looked in the tuck shop?" asked Frank Nugent, laughing. "Of course, I looked there first. He's not there." "Looked in your study?" asked Vernon Smith. "Eh? Why should I look in my study for him?" "Because you had a parcel from home this morning." "Oh!" exclaimed Harry, and there was a chuckle from the fellows in the rag as the captain of the Remove turned away. He tramped up to the Remove landing, where he found several Remove fellows. "Seen Bunter?" "Too often," answered Tom Brown. "Oh, don't be an ass. I've got to root him out for Quelch. Has anybody seen that fat chump trickling about?" "He came up to the studies after class," said Squiff. "Haven't seen him go down." Wharton tramped on into the Remove passage. He held open the door of number 7 and looked in. "Bunter here?" Only one of the 3 proprietors of number 7 study was visible. Tom Dutton was there, and he looked round and nodded. Tom Dutton was afflicted with deafness, which was perhaps not wholly an affliction for a study-mate of Billy Bunter's. He missed a great deal of Bunter's conversation. "Here?" he repeated. "Yes, I can hear you. I'm not so deaf as the fellows make out. What do you want?" I asked you if that fat owl was here. No need to howl to make me hear, answered Dutton testily. Looking for Toddy. He's gone down, I think. Harry Wharton's next call was at number 12 study, which belonged to Lord Mauleverer. Morley's study was generally a land flowing with milk and honey, and a likely cover to draw for Billy Bunter. His lordship, reclining gracefully on his study sofa, gave the captain of the remove an inquiring glance as he looked in. "Has a blithering, blithering, blathering idiot been here, Morley?" "Only you, old chap." "What?" "I mean, nobody but you." "Oh, fathead." The door banged, and Harry Wharton stared up and down the passage. Fisher T. Fish looked out of number 14 study and grinned at his exasperated face. "Say, boy, what's biting you?" he asked. "Seen anything of Bunter?" asked Harry. "Yep, I guess I saw him levanting up to the box room. Anything of yourn in the bag that fat guy had under his arm?" grinned Fisher T. Fish. "The fat scoundrel!" cried Wharton. He cut along to the box-room stairs and mounted 2 at a time, followed by a chuckle from Fisher T. Fish. The box-room door did not open to his touch. Evidently it was locked on the inside. Wharton banged on it, and there was a startled gasp within. "Bunter, you fat villain!" roared Wharton.
I'm not here."
"Open the door, you blithering bandersnatch."
I can't. I've lost the key. I say, old chap, it's not your cake."
"You've bagged the cake out of my parcel," roared Wharton.
Nothing of the kind. I never knew you had a parcel, and I certainly didn't know there was a cake in it. If it's gone, I expect Nugent had it."
"Why, you...
Or perhaps it was Smithy. I remember seeing Smithy hanging about in a surreptitious way."
"You fat brigand. Quelch wants you." "You fat chump, what are you cackling at? Nothing funny in Quelch sending for you, is there?"
"You can't pull my leg. I'm not opening that door, and I haven't finished the cake. I've lost the key."
Wharton thumped on the door again. "I tell you, Quelch wants you."
"Keep it up."
"You fat lunatic, I tell you, Quelch."
Wharton?
It was a bark from the foot of the short box-room stairway. Harry Wharton gave a jump and spun round in dismay. He looked down the stairs at a lean, angular figure and a darkly frowning face. "Oh!" gasped Harry. It was more than 20 minutes since Mr. Quelch had requested him to send Bunter to his study. Evidently Quelch had lost patience and taken the matter in hand himself. The remove-master rustled up the stairs. One grim look dismissed Wharton from the spot. Mr. Quelch rapped on the door. From within came a cheery, fat voice.
"That you silly ass? Look here, I'm not unlocking the door. You can't pull my leg about old Quelch. Fat lot I care for old Quelch."
Bunter?
"Oh, crikey."
"Open this door at once, Bunter."
"Oh, scissors."
The key turned in the lock. The door opened. A fat owl blinked at the remove-master, with his little round eyes almost popping through his big, round spectacles. There was a wedge of cake in Bunter's fat hand, a chunk of cake on a box lid, and a sea of crumbs on the floor. It was, or had been, a luscious cake, and Bunter had been enjoying life.
"Bunter, follow me to my study."
"Oh, Jiminy."
Bunter followed. Billy Bunter stood, quaking. Mr. Quelch sat at his study table, looking across it at Bunter with a deeply thoughtful frown on his face. A whole minute of silence had passed. Billy Bunter was not bright. He was not quick on the uptake, but he sensed something unusual in the atmosphere. He had a feeling of deep disquiet. He did not understand the expression on Quelch's face. Had Quelch told him to bend over and hand it out 6, it would have been very unpleasant, but Bunter would have understood. He had been there before, so to speak. Only a minute, merely 60 brief seconds, but it seemed quite an age to Bunter before Mr. Quelch spoke at last.
"I have come to the conclusion, Bunter, that you are wasting your time here, and my time. You are lazy, idle, greedy, undutiful, slack in class, and slack at games, in no respect whatever a credit to this school."
Bunter blinked at him. He was quite taken by surprise.
"Me, sir?"
"Your stupidity," said Mr. Quelch, "I can excuse. I can make allowance for that, but your idleness, your slackness, your incorrigible untruthfulness, these are faults that you could amend if you chose. You are a disgrace to your form, Bunter."
Not me, sir. Perhaps you're mixing me up with some other fellow, sir.
What?
I mean, perhaps you're thinking of Wharton, sir, or Cherry, or Nugent, or Toddy.
That you are the most obtuse boy in the remove is not perhaps your fault,
went on Mr. Quelch regardless.
Yet you could make some effort, Bunter, if you chose to do so. Your idleness is phenomenal. Your untruthfulness is appalling. Frequently, your greediness has caused you to purloin food from other boys' studies.
If you mean the jam, sir, it wasn't Smithy's, and that cake wasn't Wharton's.
Lines and detentions, even canings, seem to effect no improvement. You are incorrigible, Bunter. Greyfriars School is no place for a boy who has proved incorrigible.
Bunter jumped. His eyes grew rounder behind his spectacles. Was the awful beast hinting at expelling him? Bunter felt a cold chill trickle down his spine. His fat knees knocked together.
I say, sir. Oh, crikey.
I have lately received a letter from your father, Bunter. He expresses the deepest dissatisfaction with your midterm report.
Does he, sir? I say, sir, I hope it was a good report, sir.
It was a very bad report, Bunter. Mr. Bunter expresses the opinion that you seem to be deriving very little benefit from Greyfriars. I cannot but agree with him.
Oh, crikey!
I advise you to listen to me very carefully, to weigh my words and to remember them,
said Mr. Quelch quietly but grimly.
At the end of the present term, your term's report will go to your father. If it is a bad report as before, it will be accompanied by a letter to Mr. Bunter expressing my views in the strongest terms that it will be quite useless for you to return to Greyfriars next term.
Oh, but I don't want to leave Greyfriars, sir. Oh, crumbs!
If you do not desire to leave Greyfriars, Bunter, you will have time to amend your conduct and show such improvement as will justify me in sending your father a good report.
Bunter blinked at him. Quelch apparently saw a lot of room for improvement in Bunter. Bunter did not see it himself, but he knew that it was futile to argue with a beak, so he said nothing.
I shall hope, said Mr. Quelch, that you will make the necessary effort, Bunter.
Oh, yes, sir,
mumbled Bunter.
That is all. You may now go.
Billy Bunter almost tottered from the study.
Hello. Here he is.
Where's that cake, you fat villain? Scalp him. Scalp him bald-headfully. 5 voices were in unison. Harry Wharton, Frank Nugent, Bob Cherry, Johnny Bull, and Hurry Jamset Ramsing, all speaking at once, gathered round Billy Bunter. Bunter did not speak. He did not stir. He just sat where he was, his ample proportions filling the biggest armchair in the junior day-room, and blinked at the wrathful quintet with a dolorous blink through his big spectacles. Something unusual in Bunter's aspect struck them. He seemed to be plunged in the very depths of pessimism. "Hold on," said Harry. "Quelch has been on his track. If the fat villain has just had 6 from Quelch—" "What, Bunter?" demanded Bob Cherry.
Eh?
mumbled Bunter.
Oh, worse than that. I say, you fellows, it's awful.
"Sent up to the head?" asked Frank Nugent.
Oh, worse than that,
groaned Bunter. A minute ago the famous 5 had been prepared to collar Bunter and reduce him to a state of breathless wreckage. Now they gave him sympathetic looks. "You're not going to be expelled, surely?" exclaimed Harry Wharton. "You're not sacked, old fat man," exclaimed Bob.
Well, not quite so bad as that, but it comes to the same thing. I've got to leave at the end of the term, unless...
"Unless what?"
"Unless Quelch gets over his prejudice against me and does me justice,"
said Bunter dismally.
"He's going to give me a bad report and advise my pater to take me away. Fancy what you'd feel like, you fellows, if I didn't come back next term. Think of that."
"Oh," gasped the 5.
"And that's what it's coming to, unless I can get round Quelch somehow. I've been sitting here thinking it over, and, well, it's awful. I don't want to leave Greyfriars. Think how the fellows would miss me."
"Oh, You could chuck up snooping tuck in other fellows' studies, suggested Wharton.
Oh, really, Wharton?
You could chuck up the execrable fibfulness and try your hand at esteemed veracity,
suggested Hurry Jamset Ram Singh.
Oh, really, Hurry?
Billy Bunter did not seem to regard these suggestions as helpful. Billy Bunter rolled into number 1 study and shut the door after him, and the captain of the remove reached for a missile. It was several days since Bunter's heart-to-heart talk with his formmaster in Quelch's study. By that time, all the remove knew of the sword of Damocles that impended over Billy Bunter's fat head. More and more and more, Billy Bunter didn't want to leave Greyfriars. The place had its drawbacks, of course. Nobody there valued Bunter at his real value. But Bunter was going to stick to the dear old school. However, it was borne in upon his fat mind that there was only one means of sticking to the dear old school. He had to tread the thorny path of reform. Reform, of course, was not necessary. Bunter was completely satisfied with himself. Indeed, his self-satisfaction was unlimited. But it was Quelch that had to be satisfied. There was the rub. Harry Wharton was sitting at the study table with a paper before him, a pencil in his hand, and a thoughtful wrinkle in his brow. He was going through the list of the cricket team that was shortly going over to Highcliffe.
Look here, Wharton. You know how I'm fixed,
said the fat owl, with a reproachful blink at the captain of his form.
I think you might back up a fellow when he's down on his luck.
Busy, old fat man. Cut off.
Lines for Quelch?
Asked Bunter. No, ass, cricket list for the Highcliffe match next week. And it's just on time for nets, said Harry, glancing at the study clock. Roll away like a good barrel.
Well, I've got to speak to you about cricket, among other things. I suppose you don't want me to leave Greyfriars, Wharton?
Harry Wharton laughed. I might just be able to bear it. A fellow's tuck would be safe in his study cupboard at any rate.
Beast! I want your help, old chap. I've got to keep Quelch quiet or he'll push me out at the end of term. He said so. I'm going to get a good report this term or bust. It'll mean work. Well, I'm going to work.
Oh, the change may do you good, assented Wharton. Glad to hear it. Now go and tell some other fellow about it.
But that isn't all. There's games, and that's where you come in. You run games in the remove as captain. Well, you can help me there. Quelch thinks I slack at games. Well, what I want is a chance. You needn't give me a place in the team for Highcliffe.
Thanks, I won't.
I prefer to play in a home match. I want Quelch's eye on me. I'm not particular which match I play, and I'll leave that to you, he said generously. Put me in one fairly soon, that's all.
Laughed Wharton.
What are you cackling at?
Your little joke.
I'm not joking,
howled Bunter. Your mistake, you are, Wharton assured him. Now roll away and be funny in some other study. I really want to go over this list before nets.
Are you going to put me down for a remove match or not? Demanded Bunter.
Not.
Well, this isn't the time for paltry jealousy of a better man, Harry Wharton. Put that right aside for one, you howling ass. The sooner the better. I want to get on Quelch's right side.
We can't chuck cricket matches away simply to provide Quelch with a funny entertainment.
You silly ass! I suppose you don't think your dashed cricket so important as my staying on at Greyfriars?
More.
Beast!
But I'll tell you what I'll do for you, said Harry. He rose from the table and put the cricket list in his pocket. If you're so keen on cricket...
frightfully keen,
assured Bunter. Well, I'll see that you don't cut nets. I'll back you up all along the line in getting lots of practice.
I don't need the practice, you do, said Bunter disdainfully. The fact is, I can't come down today. I've got a pain in my leg.
Which leg?
I forget. I mean, the right leg. A pain like a burning dagger. You can explain to Wingate if he asks why I'm not there.
At that moment the door of number 1 study was hurled open, a sturdy figure in flannels appeared in the doorway, and Bob Cherry's ruddy face looked in. He had a bat under his arm. Hello. Time you changed, Harry, if you're not going to be late, old scout. Righto. Come on, Bunter.
No, I'm not coming, old chap. This pain in my arm. I mean my leg.
Don't be a fat ass, said Harry tersely. It's a compulsory day, and Wingate'll give us a look in. Get a move on.
Oh, really, Wharton, when I'm suffering this fearful pain?
Hold on, said Bob. If Bunter's got a fearful pain and can't walk out of the study, he certainly can't go down to the nets, and you'll have to let him off. But perhaps he exaggerates. I'll try prodding him with this bat, and I shouldn't wonder if he could walk out of the study all right.
Ow! Oh, you-roo! Oh, keep that bat away, you silly ass! Whoop, whoop, whack!
Billy Bunter fairly bounded. "Well, he can jump if he can't walk," said Bob.
A spot of prodding. Ow! Ow! Oh! Will you keep that bat away?
Squeaked Bunter, dodging round the study table.
Beast! Leave off shoving that bat at me, will you? I'm going.
5 minutes later, a fat figure that looked on the point of bursting out of its white flannels rolled reluctantly down to junior nets. If Billy Bunter was keen on cricket, nobody would have guessed it from the expression on his fat face.
You will go on, Bunter.
Oh, law,
breathed Billy Bunter. He had hoped to escape the gimlet eye that morning. It was very unfortunate in the circumstances. He really did want to make a good impression on his form master, if only it could be done without exerting himself. He really did want a good report that term. He wanted his report to contain such phrases as painstaking and conscientious worker. Bunter really wished he'd not been too busy the previous evening to bother about prep. Bunter blinked dismally at his Latin page. Even when he had taken a shot at his prep, his translation was generally rather askew, but this time he had not even looked at it. A page of prepared Latin presented many difficulties to Bunter. A page of unprepared Latin was a deep mystery to him.
I said go on, Bunter.
Yes, sir,
moaned Bunter, blinking at his page. Evidently it was something about that beast Aeneas, but Bunter wondered dismally what the beast was up to this time.
Translate,
rapped Mr. Quelch.
But good Aeneas,
Bunter mumbled. There was a pause.
Go on, Bunter.
Oh, yes, sir. I'm going on. It's quite easy to me, sir, as I was so careful with my prep last night, sir.
If you do not immediately translate, Bunter...
But good Aeneas, good Aeneas, per noctem plurimar volvens, turning over in bed.
What?
But good Aeneas, turning over several times in the night,
yelled the remove.
Silence! Bunter, what do you mean by this?
Isn't that right, sir?
Bless my soul,
said Mr. Quelch.
Ut primum lux alma data est, when he was given a light,
pursued Bunter.
Bunter, have you the faintest idea of the meaning of that passage? Exclaimed Mr. Quelch.
Oh, yes, sir. Aeneas was turning over in bed, and they gave him a light.
Roared the remove.
You have not prepared this lesson, Bunter.
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, I was very careful with it. I worked at it very hard, sir. I think I've got it right, sir.
Grant me patience,
articulated Mr. Quelch. Bunter blinked uneasily at him.
Your translation, Bunter, would disgrace a small boy in the second form. I will not permit such idleness, such slackness in my form. Stand out before the class, Bunter.
Billy Bunter rolled out reluctantly. Mr. Quelch picked up the cane from his desk. Billy Bunter eyed it with apprehension.
Bend over that chair, Bunter. Whack!
Ow!
Whack!
Wow!
Bunter realized very clearly that he hadn't made any progress towards that good report at the end of the term. Here, lend a hand. Horace Coker did not request. He rapped out a command in the lofty manner that was customary with Coker of the Fifth. Bunter blinked round. He was coming upstairs and had reached the middle landing when Coker's voice hailed him from behind. Coker of the Fifth was coming up after him, and Coker of the Fifth was heavy-laden. He was carrying a hamper, and it was a rather large and heavy hamper. "Don't stand there like a stuffed dummy," went on Coker crossly, as Billy Bunter blinked down at him through his big spectacles. "Come and lend a hand with this hamper, you fat young ass." Many removed fellows, addressed thus peremptorily by Coker of the Fifth, would have told Coker where he got off, or walked on regardless. And Billy Bunter was really the least likely recruit. Bunter had plenty of weight to carry up the stairs without a hamper added. Nevertheless, Billy Bunter turned back to give Horace Coker the required helping hand. It was the hamper that did it. Bunter was deeply interested in the hamper, if not in Coker. Bunter had an eye on the crumbs that fell from the rich man's table. Between them the hamper was heaved up to the middle landing and across it to the upper stairs. Halfway up to the upper landing, Billy Bunter was spluttering for breath.
I say, stop a minute, I'm out of breath.
You would be, snapped Coker. Fat, lazy, slack little porker.
Look here.
Don't jaw. Get on with it, said Coker, and he barged on, heedless of Billy Bunter's desire for a rest. Billy Bunter breathed hard and breathed deep, but he made no rejoinder, and the hamper was heaved up to the landing. There Bunter dumped down his end and spluttered. "Done in?" asked Coker sarcastically. "Why don't you keep yourself fit, you fat slacker? Here, Skinner, lend a hand with this hamper." Skinner of the Remove was coming across the landing to go down.
I say, I'll help you with it, Coker, gasped Bunter anxiously. I'll help you get it to your study.
Bunter was anxious to be on the scene when that hamper was opened.
"You can shut up," said Coker. "Skinner, take hold of this hamper, take one handle, and get it along to my study. Do you hear me?"
he added in a roar as Skinner, unheeding, went on to the stairs. Skinner certainly heard, but like the ancient gladiator, he heard, but he heeded not. He merely ignored Coker. But Coker was not a fellow to be ignored by a junior. He stepped after Skinner and let out a foot.
"Oh!"
roared Skinner as he tottered.
"Now lend a hand with this hamper if you don't want another," snapped Coker.
Skinner did not seem to want another, but he did not lend a hand with the hamper. He cut down the stairs and vanished.
I say, Coker, I'll help.
"Shut up and get on with it," growled Coker. And Bunter shut up and got on with it. The hamper was carted across the landing into the fifth form passage and along to Coker's study. There it was safely landed, and Bunter was able to take a rest, which he badly needed, and splutter for breath, which he needed still more. Coker unfastened the lid of the hamper. A delightful aroma reached Billy Bunter's fat little nose, and he sniffed appreciatively. He had a glimpse of ripe red apples and luscious pears. No doubt there were other good things packed underneath. Coker picked up a ripe, luscious pear.
"Here you are, you fat ass," he said. "Now cut."
He tossed the pear to Bunter, who naturally missed the catch. Bunter always missed catches on the cricket field, and he'd no better luck in Coker's study in the fifth. There was quite a bump as the pear landed on a little fat nose.
"Ow! Oh, wow! Oh, my nose!"
"Ha, ha!" roared Coker. "Now cut off. Tell Potter and Green to come here. Tell them my hamper's come. I expect they're in the games study." Billy Bunter gave him a look and rolled out. He passed the game study at the end of the fifth form passage without looking into that apartment. If Coker fancied that he could send Bunter on messages, Coker had another guess coming. Having turned a corner, Bunter came to a halt. He proceeded to dispose of the pear so generously bestowed on him by Horace Coker. It was a luscious pear, and Bunter liked it. It made him eager for more. Bunter could easily have disposed of a dozen like it, one after another. And Bunter was going to, if his fat wits could work the oracle. Having finished the pear, the fat junior rolled back to Coker's study. He blinked in at Horace Coker, who gave him a glare. Coker was expecting his study mates, Potter and Green, not the fat ornament of the Remove.
I say, Coker, hurry up, gasped Bunter. Potter's fallen down the library steps.
"Clumsy ass," said Coker.
I think he's broken his neck."
"What?" Coker was gone almost in the twinkling of an eye. In another twinkling, Billy Bunter rolled across to the open hamper. He grabbed at apples and pears. As he did so, there were footsteps in the fifth form passage. Bunter stopped, his eyes fixed on the open doorway in alarm. In that doorway, a moment later, two figures appeared. Potter and Green had come along from the game study at an unlucky moment for Bunter. "Hello," gasped Potter, staring at the fat owl. What? Began Green. But they didn't really need to ask questions. The scene spoke for itself. Seeing Billy Bunter standing over the open hamper with a red, ripe apple in one fat hand and a fat, luscious pear in the other was enough. Potter and Green didn't waste time in words. They went into action at once. Potter got in the first kick, but Green was a good second. Billy Bunter yelled and bounded for the door. An apple flew from one hand, a pear from the other, and Bunter flew from the doorway as Potter's foot landed again. He did not linger in the passage. He did that passage almost as rapidly as Horace Coker, and vanished into space.
I say, you fellows.
"Too late," said Bob Cherry sadly.
Eh? What do you mean?
Asked Bunter. "Only half a sardine left," explained Bob.
I haven't come to tea,
snorted Bunter.
I've tea'd with Morley. I wish you fellows wouldn't think that a fellow's always thinking about grub. I can tell you I got something else to think of with Quelch down on me, hunting for an excuse to give me a bad report this term. You heard him this morning in form.
"Ha ha!" roared Bob. "Is good old Aeneas still turning over in bed?"
You can cackle. I had it right. I jolly well know that, but look here, I haven't come to talk about that rot. I shall have to be jolly wary of Quelch in class, as he's determined to be down on me for nothing. But never mind that now. It's about Coker.
"Coker of the Fifth?" asked Bob. "I hear that he's been kicking Skinner, and Skinner didn't seem to like it." "Like his cheek to kick a remove man," growled Johnny Bull. "It's about time that fifth-form fathead was told where he gets off."
Just what I was thinking," said Bunter eagerly. "That's what I came to tell you fellows about. Coker's too jolly cheeky, and I know a way to make him sit up. You fellows ain't afraid of Coker of the Fifth, are you?"
"Not a lot," agreed Bob. "What's the big idea?"
"Well, Coker's had a hamper."
"Nothing to do with us if he has."
"If you fellows bagged it."
"What?" exclaimed the famous five all together.
Mind, I don't want a hand in it," said Bunter hastily. "I've got to be wary with Quelch. He makes out that I snoop tuck from other fellows' studies. He's actually said so."
"Oh, crumbs!"
"He's got a suspicious eye on me."
"You fat villain," roared Johnny Bull wrathfully. "Are you asking us to snoop Coker's tuck for you?"
"Not for me, of course. Equal wax all round. I'm not greedy, I hope. You fellows get it out of Coker's study and up to the box room, see? I'll be waiting for you there."
"You podgy pirate," said Harry Wharton in measured tones. "Do you think we want to bag another fellow's tuck?"
I say, you fellows, you don't seem to catch on. I tell you, the hamper's simply crammed with tuck. You know Coker's hampers. Plenty to go round once we get it safe to the box room."
"You bloated brigand, we don't want to scoff Coker's tuck."
Well, what I'm really thinking of is making that brute Coker sit up. He's been kicking a remove fellow, and we oughtn't to stand that, you know. We can jolly well bag his hamper, see, as punishment for his swank. Oh, not because of the tuck, of course."
They all laughed.
"Ha, ha, ha! What? Blessed if I see anything to cackle at. Is it a go?"
"Gentlemen, chaps, and sportsmen," said Bob Cherry, "Coker of the Fifth is a silly ass and a swanking fathead, but he has good ideas sometimes. He's kicked a remove man. Now let's follow his example. Let's all do the same. Hear, hear." And the famous five jumped up like one man. Billy Bunter gave them one alarmed blink and realized that he was the remove man they were going to kick. He turned to flee. 5 lunging feet helped him in his flight. Bunter disappeared with a roar, and the door slammed after him. "I say, there's jolly old Henry," said Bob Cherry. "Oh." 5 Greyfriars juniors on Redcliffe Hill looked dismayed. They'd been wheeling their machines up the hill, which was a little steep. 5 bicycles stood against the wayside trees, and 5 juniors sat on a log under the branches, taking a rest and whacking out a packet of toffee. Bob Cherry had risen to go to his machine, when, glancing up the leafy lane that wound up the hillside, he spotted in the distance a well-known lean, angular figure coming down the lane from Redcliffe. "Copped," remarked Frank Nugent. Johnny Bull grunted. "I told you fellows it was fat-headed to take a run out of bounds without asking leave," he remarked. "We're not copped yet, old beans," said Bob. "Henry hasn't spotted us. Get those jiggers behind the trees and get out of sight." 5 bicycles were hurriedly pushed behind gnarled old trunks. 5 juniors backed out of sight behind those trunks. If Quelch had not seen them yet, the famous 5 were safe from discovery. The remove master would pass them unseen when he reached the spot. He was coming down the hill at a good rate, and it was lucky for the truants that Bob had spotted him at a safe distance. Very soon after the 5 juniors were in cover, they heard his footsteps in the lane. To their great relief, Mr. Quelch did not glance to the side of the lane where they were in cover. The tall, lean gentleman passed within a few feet of those members of his form, and they almost held their breath as he passed. But he didn't glance round, and he swung on his way, his long legs covering the ground at a great rate. "All clear," murmured Bob, as the footsteps grew fainter down the lane. "Wait till he's out of sight, though," said Harry. "Can't be too careful." "True, O King." "Hello, hello, hello. Here's somebody else on the road," exclaimed Bob. "Some gent in a hurry." A running man passed the thickets, and the juniors could all see him as he passed, though he, like Quelch, evidently had no idea that they were there. His looks were not prepossessing. He had little, close-set, red-rimmed eyes, and a nose with a list to port. There was a cudgel in his right hand, gripped hard, as if not for carrying, but for intended use. A whiff of tobacco and spirits was wafted to the schoolboys as he ran past. "By gum," murmured Bob, "that's not a chap a fellow would like to meet on a lonely road on a dark night." Harry Wharton caught his breath. "Is he after Quelch?" he exclaimed. "This is a pretty lonely lane. We pass nobody coming up, and it looks—" "By gum," breathed Bob. "Is that the man Bunter told us about last week? He got Bunter in Friardale Lane, and Quelch came up and gave him what for. Bunter said he had a twisted nose and red eyes." "He's after Quelch anyhow," said Harry. "Bunter said that Quelch swiped him with his walking-stick," said Johnny Bull. "The blighter ran for it. Quelch can handle him all right." "Not if that fellow gets him from behind," said Harry, his eyes anxiously on the 2 distant figures. "It looks to me—" The tall figure of Henry Samuel Quelch passed out of sight beyond a winding bend of the lane. A moment later, the running figure was out of sight, hidden by winding hedges. The juniors exchanged glances. "Run up the bikes, quick," breathed Wharton. "We can't chance it. It looks as if that ruffian is after Quelch. We can't leave him to it. If there's nothing in it, we get nailed for breaking bounds, but, well, we can't chance Quelch getting his nut cracked from behind." "Quick," said Bob. The chums of the remove jumped to the bicycles. With a rush and a whir, they swept down the hill in a whizzing bunch. "Gotcha!" breathed Nosey Jenkins. He lashed out with a cudgel as he said the words. Mr. Quelch hardly knew what was happening. The running man had drawn quite near, his footsteps making little or no sound on the grass verge by the lane. But as he closed in with uplifted cudgel, the remove master heard him and turned quickly to meet the vicious blow. Nosey had been taking his ease under the trees higher up the lane when he had spotted in the distance the lean gentleman who'd given him that well-deserved swiping a week ago. It seemed sheer luck to the revengeful Nosey to see him again in so solitary a place. Mr. Quelch turned as he struck, but not in time to dodge the blow. It came down hard and heavy, cracking in the crown of his hat. Luckily the hat protected the head from its full force, but the head received a rather unpleasant knock, and the startled remove master staggered, the walking-stick falling from under his arm to the ground. He had no time to retrieve it. A second swipe was coming at his head, and only by a sudden swift backward jump did Quelch elude it. Nosey followed him up, lashing out with the cudgel. "Gotcha," he said with a snarl. "My turn now, old 'un. You laid into a bloke pretty hard. Strike me pink and blue if I don't crack your nut." Mr. Quelch was an elderly gentleman, but he was active. With his stick in his hand, he would not have feared the ruffian in the least, but empty-handed, he had no chance against a lashing cudgel, and he could only strive to dodge the savage blows that Nosey rained at him. But he could not have lasted long. Had there been no help at hand, the remove master of Greyfriars would have fared very badly at the hands of the revengeful Nosey. But all of a sudden, a bunch of cyclists swept round a bend up the lane, coming downhill at full pelt. "Here they are!" roared Bob. "Come on!" Bob drove at his pedals and came down the hilly lane like an arrow. Fast after him came the other fellows. The rush and whir of the bicycles and Bob's stentorian shout caused both Quelch and his assailant to stare round. Nosey was quick on the uptake. As the cyclists came whizzing down the hill straight at him, he gave them one glare, and then, with a single bound, disappeared from the lane into the adjoining wood. A second later, Bob Cherry's bike rushed by. Bob jammed on his brakes and jumped down, letting his machine reel to the roadside. "Cherry!" gasped Mr. Quelch. Quelch rather liked that happy, exuberant member of his form, but never before had he been so glad to see Bob's cheery face. "Oh,
My dear boy.
He panted for breath. "Are you hurt, sir?" asked Bob anxiously. "You've had a knock."
No. Yes, gasped Mr. Quelch. The ruffian gave me one blow. I think I have a bruise.
He took off the battered hat and rubbed his head. There was a whir and a clatter as the rest of the cyclists dismounted. Mr. Quelch gave them a very kindly look.
"Wharton, Nugent, Cherry Bull, Hurry Singh. Oh, my dear boys, I'm very much obliged to you. It was very fortunate for me that you came by."
"Shall we get after the brute, sir?" asked Harry. "He can't be very far away yet."
"We'll bag him, sir,"
said Johnny Bull.
No, nothing of the kind," said Mr. Quelch hastily. "But,
His expression altered a little.
Have you leave out of school bounds?"
No, sir," stammered Harry.
Mr. Quelch frowned. "You were out of bounds, Wharton."
Yes, sir."
"Well, in the circumstances, I must say nothing more about that. You will return to Greyfriars at once, that is all."
"Yes, sir," murmured the juniors. And the famous five remounted and rode down the hill. Their ride out of school bounds was washed out, but on the other hand, they certainly had saved Henry Samuel Quelch from getting his majestic nut cracked. So they were feeling rather pleased with themselves, and things generally, as they pedalled cheerfully home to Greyfriars.
"Ja."
That elegant and polite remark greeted five fellows as they came into the rag. It came from Billy Bunter. Bunter was seated in an armchair. He was eating, or rather toying with, a peach. It was quite a nice peach, which Bunter might have been expected to scoff in a split second. The slowness with which he was disposing of it indicated plainly that Bunter was already loaded to the plimsoll line.
"Ja,"
he repeated. His fat lip curled with disdain.
"You don't know what you've missed. Serve you jolly well right."
"What have we missed?" asked Harry Wharton.
"Oh, nothing, but if you fellows think that a fellow couldn't manage without your help, you can guess again,"
sneered Bunter. "You fat villain, have you been raiding Coker's hamper?" asked Frank Nugent. "Doesn't he look sticky all over?" grunted Johnny Bull. "That's it. That's one of Coker's peaches."
"Oh, really, Bull?"
Billy Bunter's fat face registered alarm.
"I say, you fellows, don't you get making jokes about me raiding Coker's hamper."
He slipped the remnant of the peach hurriedly into his pocket. "Where did you get that, Bunter?" grinned Bob.
From home," explained Bunter. "We grew peaches and all sorts of things at Bunter Court. I'll take you fellows home sometime and show you the vast vineries and peacheries."
Bob shook his head. "There'll be a row, you fat ass. You can't raid hampers in another form as you do in the remove. If you had the sense of a bunny rabbit, you'd steer clear of senior studies. Coker will raise Cain." "Coker's raising Cain already," chuckled Vernon Smith. "I heard him telling the fifth form men in the game study. You can hear him a mile off. He came in and found the hamper empty."
"'Twasn't empty," exclaimed Bunter warmly. "I couldn't get all the things into Toddy's cricket bag. I had to leave a lot." "Ha, ha, ha, ha. No, not that I went to Coker's study," added Bunter.
Skinner came into the rag. "Bunter here?" he asked.
"Oh, really, Skinner? If it's anything about a hamper, I don't know anything about it."
"You better tell Coker that," chortled Skinner. "He's asking for you. I expect he'll be dropping in soon." Billy Bunter heaved himself out of the armchair. He was deeply alarmed.
I say, you fellows, if Coker comes in, don't tell him I'm here, and I'll get behind the door, and you fellows tell him I've gone to see the head. Tell him I've gone to a funeral."
"Here he comes."
"Oh, crikey!"
There was a heavy tread in the passage. A burly figure and a red, wrathful face appeared in the doorway. Horace Coker of the fifth form glared round over a crowd of laughing faces.
"Where's Bunter?" roared Coker. "I jolly well know it was Bunter cleared out my hamper."
He's left you a message," said Bob.
"Eh? What? What message?"
"He's gone to see the head, and he's gone home to a funeral."
"You young ass, he can't have done both."
Oh, no. You pays your money, and you takes your choice," explained Bob.
"Ha, ha, ha," laughed the remove. "I didn't come here for silly jokes," retorted Coker. "I've come here for Bunter, and if you give me any cheek, I'll jolly well smack your head. I've a jolly good mind to smack it anyway."
"You've got a jolly good mind," exclaimed Bob. "Then why don't you use it sometimes, Coker?"
"Why, you cheeky little tick," bawled Coker.
Coker was simply yearning to smack ahead, Bunter's for preference, but Bunter did not seem to be present, and Bob Cherry, in Coker's opinion, was asking for it. So he strode at the cheery Bob and smote. Smack! "There!" hooted Coker. "Now, where's... Oh, let go! Keep off! Why, I'll thrash the lot of you! I'll... Rope!" Senior men were not allowed to throw their weight about in the rag, the special domain of the juniors. In a moment, Coker of the Fifth was whirling wildly in the grasp of many hands. Coker was big, he was powerful, he was hefty. But he was simply nowhere among so many assailants. Whirling in the midst of the excited mob, Horace Coker was rushed to the doorway, spluttering frantically. "Chuck him out!" cried Bob Cherry. Let go! I'll spifflicate you! I'll pulverize you! I'll... roared Coker as he whizzed. Bump! The fifth form man landed in the passage with a mighty concussion. He roared as he landed, and a roar of laughter from the crowded doorway of the rag echoed Coker's roar. And then Bunter's voice was heard from behind the door.
I say, you fellows, keep him out. I say, jump on him, making out that a fellow had his hamper, you know. I say, go after him and jump on him.
Coker, spluttering, struggled to his feet. He made a berserk rush at the crowded doorway. Many hands collared him again at once, and once more Coker whirled and landed with a loud concussion. Then there was a rustle in the passage, and a sharp voice. Mr. Prout, the master of the Fifth, rustled up, his portly face wrathy. "What's all this? What is this din, this uproar, this unparalleled disturbance?" Prout stared at the sprawling Horace. "Goodness gracious! Is that a boy of my form, a fifth-form boy joining in this unseemly horseplay with a crowd of juniors? Are you not ashamed of yourself, Coker?" Gasped Coker. He sat up dizzily. "Go!" thundered Prout, and Coker of the Fifth went, almost foaming at the mouth. "This is a jolly serious matter, you fellows." "Give it a name, old bean," said Nugent. "What's the row?" "Well," said Bob, "it looks to me like a matter for the police." "What?" "Well, look at it," argued Bob. "Coker's hamper has been raided. Nobody at Greyfriars would snaffle Coker's tuck, excepting Bunter."
Oh, really, Cherry?"
"And Bunter says he didn't," continued Bob. "Well, as Bunter didn't—" "He did, you ass," said Johnny Bull.
"Oh, really, Bull? I never touched it."
"You hear that, you men?" said Bob. "Bunter never touched it. He says so, and we all know how truthful he is. It's a clear case of daylight burglary, one of those daylight raids we read about in the newspapers. Now, my idea is that it ought to be reported at the police station without delay, so they can get on the villain's track."
Oh,
gasped Billy Bunter. He gave Bob Cherry a rather uncertain blink. Bunter certainly would have been glad for the raid on Coker's study to be put down to a daylight burglar, but Bunter did not want a police constable at Greyfriars looking for that daylight raider. He was rather afraid that the raider might be found. "Quelch is out," said Bob. "I could cut into his study and ring up the police station and give them particulars."
I say, I wouldn't do that, Cherry."
Bunter blinked round uneasily at the juniors. Many faces had become grave now. "Well, the way you put it, it does seem jolly serious, Bob," said Harry Wharton thoughtfully. "Might lose anything with a daylight raider about." "Coker will be getting after Bunter again," said Peter Todd. "Tough luck on Bunter if he never did it." "Leave it to me, then," said Bob, and he walked out of the rag. Billy Bunter blinked round at serious faces through his big spectacles. He was deeply alarmed. At the same time, he couldn't quite believe that Bob was in earnest. Tuck had been missing at Greyfriars before. In fact, ever since Billy Bunter had honoured the old school with his distinguished presence, there had been continually recurring cases of missing Tuck. But nobody had ever thought before of calling in a policeman.
I say, you fellows, I know it's only a joke."
Billy Bunter rolled out of the rag. He didn't believe that Bob was going to phone the police station, but he was very anxious to make sure. The fat junior rolled hurriedly away to Master's Passage. The door of Quelch's study was partly open. He blinked in, and his fat heart jumped as he saw Bob Cherry standing at the telephone near the window. "Robert Cherry speaking from Greyfriars School," said Bob into the receiver. "It's about a daylight burglary here."
"Oh, crikey!"
squealed Bunter. He rolled into the study.
I say, Bob, old chap."
"Please send a constable along," went on Bob, unheeding. "It's a clear case of a daylight raid. The contents of a hamper missing from a fifth-form study."
"Stop it, you beast!"
cried Bunter. He grabbed at Bob's arm to drag him away from the telephone in dire alarm. Bob gave him a shove, and there was a bump as Bunter sat down on Mr. Quelch's carpet. Gurgled Bunter. "Yes, that's good," went on Bob into the telephone. "It's only recently been discovered." "Yuru!" Bob broke off with a sudden roar. Bunter was desperate. He was going to stop that telephone call somehow. He grabbed a cushion from Mr. Quelch's armchair and swiped. The cushion landed on Bob's ear, and he staggered away from the telephone, leaving the receiver hanging, and crashed into Mr. Quelch's writing table. The table rocked, and there was a rustling of papers, and the ink pot shot off, crashing into the fender. "Ow! Ow!" roared Bob. He scrambled up and made a jump for Bunter. "You fat, foozling frump!" He paused and rubbed his ear. "Look what you've done! Quelch's inkpot upset in the grate!" Bob picked up the hanging receiver, but it was only to replace it on the hook. He picked up the inkpot from the fender and replaced it on the inkstand on the table. The ink had to remain where it was in a large and spreading pool. That could not be helped. "Better cut," said Bob. "Some of the beaks may have heard that row." And he cut down the passage and round the corner. A crowd of grinning faces were turned towards Bob as he went into the rag. "Phoned?" asked Nugent, laughing as Bob shut the door. "Yes, rather. Bunter heard what I said into the phone." "But you didn't really speak into the phone," exclaimed Johnny Bull, staring. "I jolly well did, only I didn't dial first," explained Bob. "Does that fat chump believe that a bobby would come here about missing tuck?" said Skinner, chuckling. "What a brain!" "It'll be a lesson to the fat villain," said Bob. "It's about time he had a lesson about snooping tuck." The door of the rag opened again, and Billy Bunter rolled in. He blinked round at grinning faces through his large spectacles. Billy Bunter did not wholly believe that a bobby was coming, but he couldn't feel sure. He remained in a state of deep and uneasy trepidation, and from the bottom of his fat heart he wished that he had resisted the lure of Horace Coker's hamper. Herbert Vernon Smith, the bounder of the remove, strolled past the door of Master's common room and loitered a little, with ear bent to listen. The door of that august apartment was shut, but from within many voices could be heard. Smithy was not interested in the jaw in common room. He was only interested to ascertain that the beaks were there and not in their studies. Smithy was, in fact, designing a visit of a surreptitious nature to his own beak's study. Quelch, he knew, was out, and he had heard Quelch mention to another beak before he went that he was going to Redcliffe. Quelch was not likely to materialize at Greyfriars for quite a long time yet. Smithy cut along to Quelch's study without further delay, whipped in, and closed the door after him. He grinned at a pile of form papers on the remove master's table. Quelch was extremely conscientious, more so really than his form could have desired. Quelch was certain to look at every paper with a keen eye. Smithy could, when he liked, turn out a really good Latin paper, but he did not always like, and he was aware that his paper in that pile was far from being calculated to gratify Quelch when he looked over it. His idea was that Quelch was not going to look over it. From his pocket, Smithy drew a bottle of gum and proceeded to extract the cork. When Quelch found that heap of papers in a solid block, every sheet stuck to the next with gum, he would have the whole form to choose from to find the culprit. He chuckled softly as he extracted the cork from the gum bottle. Now, Smithy could not possibly have guessed that Mr. Quelch, with a battered hat and a bump on his head, had been glad to pick up a taxi and get back to the school on wheels. Not for a moment did Smithy suspect that his form master, thus arriving back at Greyfriars a good hour earlier than he would otherwise have done, was stepping from a taxi while he was getting the cork out of the gum bottle. Footsteps came along the passage, and the bounder caught his breath. He knew that tread. "Quelch!" He was fairly caught, but Smithy was quick on the uptake. Swiftly, he jammed back the cork, and the gum bottle disappeared into his pocket. The door opened, and Mr. Quelch walked into the study. He crossed directly from the door towards the telephone on the table near the window. It was Mr. Quelch's intention to ring up the police station at Courtfield immediately and put the law on the track of the ruffian who had attacked him in Redcliffe Lane. He stopped, his gimlet eyes fixed on Herbert Vernon Smith.
Vernon Smith? What are you doing here?
Certainly he was in no mood for japes from reckless members of his form, but the bounder was quite cool now. His answer came glibly. "I hope you'll excuse me, sir. I thought you wouldn't mind my coming here to look up a word in your Greek lexicon, sir."
"Indeed,"
said Mr. Quelch very dryly. Quelch did not, as a matter of fact, believe a word of it, but he was not going to be hasty, even in dealing with a member of his form whose word was worth very little. "I just wanted to look up a word or two in Liddell and Scott, sir, if you wouldn't mind," said the bounder, innocently.
"I don't mind in the least, Vernon Smith. You may tell me the words you desired to look up."
"Oh, certainly, sir. I came on the words asbestos gelos in a book, and I thought I'd like to know what it meant." Quelch's face cleared. If Vernon Smith was lying, he certainly had it pat.
Asbestos gelos, repeated Mr. Quelch quite benignly. The phrase means inextinguishable laughter, Vernon Smith. It is found in Homer, and refers to the laughter of the gods on Olympus when Vulcan clumsily played cup-bearer.
"Oh, thank you, sir," said Vernon Smith.
"Very well, my boy. You may go."
And Vernon Smith went, and did not grin till he was outside Quelch's door, with the door shut. Mr. Quelch was left with quite a benign expression on his face. However, he had to telephone, and he turned towards that instrument. This brought him in sight of his fireplace, and he gave a sudden start. Inside the fender was a flood of ink. Quelch's eyes fixed on that inky pool with a glint in them. He breathed hard through his nose, stepped to the door, and opened it.
"Vernon Smith."
"Oh!" Smithy spun round, the grin vanishing from his face. "Yes, sir?"
"Come here at once."
"Oh, yes, sir." The bounder bit his lip as he walked back to the study. Mr. Quelch had picked up the cane from his table. The bounder eyed it uneasily.
"Vernon Smith, you have told me that you came here to look up a word in my Greek lexicon."
"Yes, sir."
"As I find that my ink pot has been emptied into my fender, Vernon Smith, I cannot accept your statement."
"Oh," gasped Smithy. He was quite unaware that Quelch's inkpot had been emptied into his fender. Some ass must have been japing in the study before Smithy's arrival there.
"I should not cane you, Vernon Smith, for this foolish trick. I should deem an imposition of 50 lines sufficient," said Mr. Quelch. "But untruthfulness is a much more serious matter. I should cane you for untruthfulness, Vernon Smith. Bend over that chair at once."
Whop, 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 whop. It was 6 of the best.
"You may go, Vernon Smith,"
said Mr. Quelch grimly, and the bounder, wriggling, went. Then Mr. Quelch laid down the cane and sat down to the telephone and told his news to Courtfield Police Station. More than an hour had elapsed since Bob had, or rather had not, telephoned. Harry Wharton and Co. had been in the gym, where they had completely forgotten the fat existence of William George Bunter. But now, as they came back to the house in a cheery bunch and strolled into the rag, they were reminded of the fat ornament of the lower fourth. Bunter was seated at the window, which gave a view of the quadrangle and the school gates in the distance. His eyes and his spectacles were fastened on those gates.
"Oh, crikey! Oh, crikey!"
he gasped. It was clear that Bunter had seen something alarming, and there was a rush to the window to see what it was. "Great Pip!" exclaimed Bob Cherry. "A bobby!" yelled Skinner. "An esteemed and ridiculous peeler!" cried Hurry Singh. In amazement, the juniors stared at the figure in uniform at the gates. It was a police constable from Courtfield. There was no doubt whatever about that. "Well, my only hat!" gasped Bob Cherry. "It's a jolly old bobby!"
"Yaroo!"
Bunter bounded from his seat.
"Oh, crikey! Oh, he's after me! I say, you fellows, no, don't you tell him I'm here. I say, I won't be running. I never touched Coco's hamper. Oh, crikey!"
And Bunter bolted from the rag. He remembered that Quelch was out, and surely they'd never look for him in a master's study. Bunter bolted for Quelch's study like a homing pigeon. He shut the door and palpitated on the inner side. He strained his fat ears to listen. On those fat ears fell the sound of heavy official footsteps. Did the bobby know he was there? The fat owl cast a despairing blink round him for a hiding place and ducked under the table. The door opened. Billy Bunter had been just in time, only just, but he was out of sight as Trotter the porter opened the door. "Mr. Quelch isn't here," Bunter heard Trotter's voice. "I expect he's in the common room. You wait here a minute and I'll go along and tell him." "Okay," said Police Constable Rance, and he came in with his heavy tread. The solid figure of Mr. Rance stood by the window like a statue in uniform, waiting, while Trotter went to apprise Mr. Quelch of his arrival. Bunter, peering from under the table, had a back view of boots and trousers. The policeman was looking out of the window. He continued to look from the window till Mr. Quelch's footsteps were heard in the corridor. Then he turned round, and Billy Bunter's fat heart almost died in his podgy breast as Mr. Quelch came into the study and shut the door.
"Please be seated, Constable."
"Oh, thank you, sir."
"I am obliged to you for coming so promptly," said Mr. Quelch graciously.
Not at all, sir," said Mr. Rance. "We should be very happy to get hold of the rascal, sir." Billy Bunter trembled under the table.
"It will be a relief to me if the wretch can be found and taken into custody," said Mr. Quelch. "A most iniquitous scoundrel."
Billy Bunter could hardly believe his ears. Mr. Rance, having sat down, extracted his official notebook to take down the description of the footpad who had attacked Mr. Quelch in Redcliffe Lane. Mr. Quelch sat down at his writing-table. Billy Bunter gave a jump as two long legs were projected under the table. He dodged them wildly, but he dodged in vain. One foot missed him by an inch. The other clumped on the best-filled waistcoat in Greyfriars School. "Oh!" gasped Bunter. He couldn't help it. That sudden clump on his fat equator had driven the breath out of him. He gasped and he gurgled. Mr. Quelch gave a sudden start. Mr. Rance stared. Both were astonished by those strange and unexpected sounds from under the table.
"Bless my soul!"
exclaimed Mr. Quelch. He stooped to look under the table. Whatever he might have expected to see under his writing-table, certainly he did not expect to see a fat, terrified face and a large pair of spectacles. He gazed at Bunter. Bunter gazed at him. There was a moment of awful silence. Then Quelch spoke, in a voice compared with which the filing of a saw might have been considered musical.
"Bunter."
"Oh, crikey! I'm not here,"
gasped Bunter.
"Wretched boy, what are you doing here? Come out at once."
Mr. Quelch rose from his chair. He grasped the cane from the table.
"Bunter, emerge at once."
But Billy Bunter did not emerge. Bunter was in terror of Quelch, but in greater terror of the constable from Courtfield. He dared not emerge.
I say, sir, it wasn't me. I never did it, sir."
"Emerge!"
thundered Mr. Quelch.
I won't be run in,"
howled Bunter.
"I won't. I never did it."
"What?"
gasped Mr. Quelch.
I ain't an iniquitous scoundrel, sir,"
wailed Bunter.
"Is this boy insane? Bunter, I order you to emerge."
And as Bunter still did not emerge, Quelch reached under the table with the cane and swiped.
"Yaroo!"
roared Bunter. One swipe was enough. Bunter emerged. He rolled out from under the table, yelling. Police Constable Rance stared at him blankly, quite surprised out of his official stolidity. Bunter, having emerged from under the table, dodged round it.
I say, sir, keep him off. I won't be run in. I never touched Coker's hamper."
"Coker's hamper?" repeated Mr. Quelch, like a man in a dream.
"Yes, sir. No, sir. No, I didn't go with a cricket bag while Coker was out, and I never took the things up to the box room, sir."
"Bless my soul."
"I won't be run in. Keep that bobby away. Oh, help!"
"My eye," murmured Mr. Rance.
"Bunter, you utterly stupid boy, you incredibly obtuse boy, do you suppose that this police constable's visit has anything to do with you?" demanded Quelch.
Hasn't he come after me, sir?"
"Oh, grant me patience, Bunter, you...
words seemed to fail the remove master.
I thought... Oh, crikey, ain't he after me, sir?
And now Mr. Rance was grinning. Mr. Quelch was not grinning.
You stupid boy, the constable is here to take down the description of a footpad. A tramp who assaulted me this afternoon in Redcliffe Lane.
I thought he'd come about Coker's hamper, sir. That beast Cherry made out that a bobby was coming about the hamper.
Silence, roared Mr. Quelch. I gather from your words, Bunter, that you've been purloining comestibles in the studies after all my serious warnings to you. I shall deal with you later. Leave my study now.
I never...
Go,
thundered Mr. Quelch. Prep, said Peter Todd. Snort, from Billy Bunter. In number 7, as in other remove studies, prep was on. Peter Todd and Tom Dutton were sitting at the table with their books. Billy Bunter was sitting in the armchair with a glum and thoughtful expression on his fat face.
Oh, blow prep. I've got something else to think of, said Bunter irritably. Quelch has got onto that rot about Coker's hamper, Peter. He's made up his mind for some reason that I had Coker's tuck, and he says it's pilfering.
Well, so it is, said Peter.
Beast. He says that everything that was taken from Coker's study's got to be paid for unless immediately returned. Well, how can I return it when I've scoffed it? I mean, when I don't know what's become of it. Don't know anything about the matter at all. Quelch is sordid, Peter.
Bunter gave a sniff of scorn.
He's turning the whole thing into a sordid question of money. Pah!
Horrid, said Peter.
Yes, that's the word, horrid, agreed Bunter. I've got to pay £2 for that tuck. I've got to take the money to Quelch to be handed to Coker. I jolly well know that Coker would rather have whacked the fellow, but Quelch won't have that. I've been disappointed about a postal order, Bunter continued. I think I told you I was expecting a postal order, Peter.
I think I heard something about it, said Peter.
Well, it hasn't come. At the moment, I'm actually stony, Peter, unless you could lend me £2.
Prep, said Peter, turning back to his books.
Well, couldn't you lend a pal a trifle like that, Peter?
It's not a trifle to me, explained Peter. I haven't any money to chuck about, old fat bean. 9pence is my limit.
It must be rotten to be poor, old chap, said Bunter. I'll take you home to Bunter Court some day, Peter, and let you see how wealthy people live. Wealth and luxury and all that, you know.
Peter gurgled.
But the trouble now is about that £2. Oh, what's a fellow to do, Peter?
Oh, that's an easy one. Phone home to Bunter Court. They'd hardly miss a couple of quid from all that wealth and luxury.
Beast!
Peter devoted himself to prep, and Bunter was left to his dismal meditations on the sordid subject of money. And it seemed that unaccustomed mental pressure evolved something in the nature of a solution in Billy Bunter's podgy brain. Prep was nearly over in number 7 study when the fat owl suddenly exclaimed,
"Good!"
Peter glanced round at him. "Got it?" he asked.
"I fancy so," said Bunter, quite brightly. "What about a fund? There's nearly 30 fellows in the form, and a bob or 18p all round would see me through. Smithy and Morley might make it 5 bob. They've got lots. You've got 9p, Peter. You'd put that in, of course."
"I can see myself doing it," said Peter.
"The fellows will rally round, I feel sure of that," said Bunter, evidently greatly taken with his big idea. "After all, I'm popular in the form." "What are you grinning at, Peter?"
"Oh, nothing. Carry on, old popular bean."
"Well, perhaps I'd better draw up a bit of a notice, and stick it up on the wall, see, like Wharton does the football notices. Make room for a chap at that table," said Bunter.
Bunter need not have feared that any fellow would go down without looking at his notice. Every fellow wanted to look at it. Indeed, they pushed and barged to get a view of it. Really, it was worth reading.
Notice,
spelt Notiss.
All my pals in the remove are hereby requested to rally around and help a chap out of a hole,
spelt Hoal.
The week's good cause. Every fellow willing to help a pal in a bad fix,
Phix.
Please step into number 7 study and put something in the box,
Bocks,
on the table. Shell out your bobs and tanners and half-crowns. Signed,
Sined,
W.G. Bunter.
Billy Bunter was rather pleased with that notice. He'd put more effort into it than he ever put into prep. He expected it to get a lot of attention in the remove. It was getting quite a lot, though the general hilarity surprised Bunter a little. He couldn't see where anything in the nature of a joke came in.
I say, you fellows, I hope you're all going to play up, squeaked Billy Bunter. I want all my pals to stand by me. I think you better begin, Wharton, as captain of the form. You might start it with £0.50.
I might. On the other hand, I might not.
I say, Bob, old chap, you begin it with £0.50, will you? You're not so mean as Wharton about £0.50.
I jolly well am, contradicted Bob Cherry. Worse. Ha ha ha. They all chortled.
Beast! I say, Toddy, you ought to start the ball rolling for a fellow in your own study.
Oh, said Peter Todd, something in that. After all, why shouldn't we rally round Bunter, you fellows? He's got to pay £2 for Coker's tuck, and he objects on principle to paying anybody for anything. Look here, I'm jolly well going to put something in Bunter's box, and I hope that every fellow here will follow my example. Dash it all, said Bob Cherry. Play up, you men. If Toddy puts something in, it's up to all of us.
Of course it is, chirruped Bunter. Bobs and tanners and half-crowns and currency notes, anything you like. I say, you fellows, rally round.
Peter's example seemed to catch on. Bob Cherry followed him up the passage, feeling in his pockets as he went. The other 4 members of the co exchanged a grin and followed Bob. Billy Bunter beamed. The famous 5 were the leaders of the remove. Where they led, other fellows were sure to follow. And other fellows did.
Play up, you fellows, burbled Bunter. Go it, you know.
But Bunter did not need to exhort. A wave of enthusiasm seemed to have caught the remove. The whole crowd poured up the passage towards number 7 study. It was overwhelming. Actually, every man in the form was crowding into or out of number 7 study, all eager to put something in the box. Such a collection could hardly fail to be a good one. Visions of wealth floated before Bunter's dazzled eyes. It might come to £1. That trifling account for Coker would be cleared off, leaving the happy owl with cash in hand. And next day, when the tuck shop was open, it was going to be a happy and sticky Bunter. The removites came crowding down the passage. The way was left open to Bunter to roll along to the study and count up his wealth. But just as the fat owl was about to roll, there was a footstep on the remove staircase, and a sharp voice rapped,
"What does all this extraordinary noise mean?"
And the extraordinary noise was subdued, as Mr. Quelch rustled on the landing.
"Wharton, what's all this? What's going on here?"
Nothing, sir," stammered the captain of the remove.
"The noise from this landing could be heard all over the house," said Mr. Quelch crossly. "I require to know—"
The remove master broke off suddenly. His gimlet eyes had fallen on Bunter's notice stuck on the landing wall. He gave quite a start, and walked across to it to look at it more closely. Quelch did not look amused. He scanned the notice on the wall really as if he could hardly believe his eyes, keen as gimlets though they were. Then he looked round at Bunter, or rather glared round at him.
"Bunter, I gather from this foolish, absurd, and ill-spelt paper that you have made an appeal to your form fellows for funds. You must be well aware that such a thing is inadmissible."
"Oh, really, sir?"
"Have the other boys been making contributions to the box in your study, Bunter?"
"Oh, Lord, yes, sir."
"Take down that absurd paper at once," demanded Mr. Quelch.
I say, sir."
"I shall cane you, Bunter, if you do not obey me immediately."
Bunter clutched down the notice.
"Now, you will fetch the contents of the box, Bunter, and hand back to every boy here what he has put into it."
"Oh, crikey!"
"Remain here, all of you," said Mr. Quelch. "Bunter, follow me."
And Mr. Quelch, with frowning brow, stalked into the remove passage, and Billy Bunter, with feelings too deep for words, followed him. Mr. Quelch rustled into number 7 study. Billy Bunter, with a face of woe, followed him in. On the table stood a large biscuit box, which had been replaced by the last contributor. Mr. Quelch looked into it. He saw the contents. Billy Bunter, blinking at him, was surprised to see Quelch's severe face twitch. He blinked again, more and more surprised. Quelch's face was not only twitching, he was laughing.
Dear me, absurd, Bunter, you ridiculous boy, you deserve this. Perhaps it may be a lesson to you.
There was no doubt about it. Quelch was laughing.
You certainly deserve this, Bunter.
Eh? May I keep it, sir?
Asked Bunter with a gleam of hope.
Keep it? Oh, yes, undoubtedly.
Mr. Quelch walked out of the study. He seemed to have changed his mind all of a sudden. It was hard to understand, however, he'd changed it, and Billy Bunter was permitted to keep the collection in the biscuit box. So it was all right. As Quelch walked out into the passage, Bunter jumped for the box on the table, his gloating eyes fixed on it. For one instant, Bunter's look was exultant. The next, he uttered a yell of fury. One look into that box was sufficient to enlighten him. He knew now why all the removed fellows had contributed so enthusiastically, why even stingy fellows like Skinner and Fisher T. Fish had put something in. The box was almost full, but not of cash. There were other things, such as crumpled old exercises, disused envelopes, knobs of coal from the coal locker, an empty jam jar, a sardine tin, and other such odds and ends, in great variety, but of absolutely no value whatever from a pecuniary point of view.
Oh, beasts, rotters, pulling a chap's leg, yah, swabs, smears, smudges.
Ha ha! Ha ha ha! Came back from the remove landing. Bunter picked up the treasure box and hurled it into the fireplace with its contents. Crash! That was the end of the Bunter Fund.
One for me?
Yes.
Oh, good!
Exclaimed Bunter. In morning break, a good many fellows had come along to look in the rack for letters. Billy Bunter, of course, was there. Bunter had long been expecting a postal order. It had not come, but hope springs eternal in the Bunter breast. As a rule, Bunter was not very keen or anxious on the subject of liquidating debts. He owed various sums, ranging from 6pence to £half-a-crown up and down the remove, and he did not allow these liabilities to worry him unduly. But that wretched £2 was another matter. Twice again Quelch had spoken to him on the subject. The fat owl was in daily dread of the matter going home to Mr. Bunter. So a letter in the rack for W.G. Bunter brightened the fat owl's worried face.
"Hand it down, Bob, old chap,"
said Bunter eagerly. Bob Cherry handed it down. Smithy grinned at Bunter.
"That jolly old postal order at last, what? The one you've been expecting ever since you were in the second form?"
"Oh, really, Smithy?" said Bob.
"One for me, I see," said the bounder carelessly. "Chuck it over, Bob."
Billy Bunter blinked at his letter. It was addressed in Mr. Bunter's hand, and his hope of a remittance was faint as he saw the parental fist. If it had been from some uncle or aunt, he might have expected better things, but he was only too sadly aware that Mr. William Samuel Bunter was more likely to send him a lecture on economy than a remittance. His blink left his own letter and fastened on that in Smithy's hand, which Bob Cherry had obligingly chucked over. Smithy very often had handsome remittances. Mr. Vernon Smith, who was a millionaire several times over, often enclosed currency notes and even bank notes in his letters to his son at Greyfriars.
"I say, Smithy,"
exclaimed Bunter suddenly.
"Eh, what?"
asked the bounder. He had thrust his letter carelessly into his pocket without even opening it.
"Look here, we've got a letter each. I'll tell you what, Smithy, you're a sportsman, old chap. I'll make you a sporting offer. I've got a letter, and you've got a letter, see? Well, there may be some cash in yours, there may be some cash in mine. Halves?
"I say," roared Bob Cherry, "is that what you call a sporting offer, old fat man?"
There was a general chortle among the fellows standing by the letter-rack. The bounder joined in it.
"Well, I call it sporting," said Bunter. "We go halves, Smithy, in any money in these letters. That's fair. It's just as likely that the sum in my letter is yours."
"Play up, Smithy," chortled Bob. "You know how likely it is that there's a postal order in Bunter's letter. Don't lose this chance." "Ha, ha, ha!" they all echoed.
"All right, let's have it clear," said
Smithy, while all the juniors stared at him blankly.
"We open the letters together and share alike in any remittance in either or both. Is that it?"
"That's it!"
gasped Bunter, scarcely daring to believe in his good luck. The bounder glanced round at staring faces. "You fellows are all witness to that. Bunter and I go halves in whatever dough there may be in our letters."
"Open your letter, Smithy, old chap," said Bunter. "I say, be quick."
Herbert Vernon Smith drew out the letter he had dropped into his pocket. He slit the envelope with all eyes on him, Billy Bunter's eyes fairly gloating through his spectacles. All the fellows were puzzled by the bounder's easy acceptance of Bunter's sporting offer, and couldn't make the bounder out. It was true that he had plenty of money, more than was good for him as a rule, but it was equally true that he knew how to take care of it. But the bounder seemed quite easy about it. From the envelope he drew out a letter and held it up for every fellow to see. It was a single sheet with a printed heading, "Brown's Cycle Works, Courtfield, Kent. To repairs of bicycle, £1, 2 shillings and 6pence." Billy Bunter gave a snort of utter disgust.
"Oh, crikey! That letter ain't from your pater, Smithy."
"Did you think it was?" drawled Smithy. And they all laughed.
"Eh? Well, of course I did. You didn't say it wasn't. Why, you beast! I believe you knew all the time that it was from the cycle shop."
"Did you, Smithy?" roared Bob Cherry. "Well, sort of," admitted Smithy. "As Brown's Cycle Works is printed on the back of the envelope, I sort of guessed." "Now open your letter, Bunter," chortled Skinner. "Roll out the wealth from Bunter Court and go halves with Smithy." Billy Bunter gave an angry grunt. His fat leg had been pulled, but that was not the worst, if by some miraculous chance there happened to be a remittance in his letter. Nobody expected it, least of all perhaps Bunter, but the chance existed. The fat owl jammed a fat thumb into the envelope, which was his elegant way of opening it. He drew out a letter and unfolded it. Then he gave a startled gasp.
"Oh, crumbs!"
Hello, cried Bob. "A postal order!" "2!" yelled Skinner.
Oh, crikey! Oh, scissors! Oh!
And his little round eyes almost popped through his big round spectacles as he blinked at 2 postal orders, each for £1, in his fat paw. "Fan me!" gasped Bob Cherry. "Help!" shrieked Peter Todd. "What ass said the age of miracles was past?" asked Frank Nugent. "Bunter's postal order has come." Billy Bunter did not heed. He gazed at those postal orders blankly, almost as if he half expected them to fade away like fairy gold.
I say, you fellows, the pater sent me £2. I never expected. I mean,
"It's the jolly old unexpected that always happens," chuckled Johnny Bull. "You've been too jolly sporting, Bunter." "Halves," said the bounder with a chuckle.
And I say, of course, it was all a joke, Smithy, wasn't it?"
stammered Bunter. "Not at all. Oh, play up, Bunter," said Bob Cherry. "And pay up," chortled Skinner. "Waiting," said Vernon Smith. Billy Bunter's fat paws closed almost convulsively on the postal orders. He had been caught in his own trap, as he dismally realized. He'd been as good as certain that the bounder would have a remittance to whack out, and as good as certain that he, William George Bunter, wouldn't.
I say..."
"No need to say anything, old fat man. Just shell out." "Pay up, old porpoise," said Bob.
I say, you fellows, of course I'm going to shell out, but give a fellow a chance to read his letter."
Seldom was Bunter keen to read the parental communications. He wasn't deeply interested in advice to keep within his allowance, or the reasons why Mr. Bunter couldn't possibly send him anything extra. Now, however, he concentrated on that letter from home. No doubt he hoped that the bell for third school would come to the rescue. As he read, "Dear William, in the course of little more than a week I have received no fewer than 4 letters from you requesting a remittance. I have already explained to you several times that it is impossible for me to augment your allowance. As it happens, however, your Uncle George spoke to me on the subject of a present for your next birthday, and in the circumstances I suggested to him that it should take the form of cash.
I therefore enclose the sum of £2 from your Uncle George, to whom you will, of course, write a grateful and dutiful letter expressing your thanks. Your affectionate father, W.S. Bunter.
Clang, clang, clang. It was the bell for third school. "Aren't we going to wait and see Bunter shell out?" grinned Frank Nugent. "My dear chap, Quelch wouldn't like us to miss a whole lesson," replied Harry Wharton. They all chortled, and Billy Bunter shot away. Seldom was Bunter prompt at the sound of the bell. Not infrequently he was late for class. Now the sound of the bell seemed to have quite a magic effect. An arrow in its flight was not swifter than Bunter. Never before had Bunter been anxious to see his form master prompt at the form room door. But Quelch had not arrived yet. The remove gathered at the door, as usual, and Billy Bunter blinked uneasily at the bounder as he came up. There was a cheery grin on Smithy's face. The wealthy bounder had plenty of money of his own, and would not, in point of fact, have touched the fat owl's postal order with a barge pole. "Shell out, Bunter!" chuckled 6 or 7 fellows.
"Oh, all right, but I say, Smithy, I suppose it'll be all right if I let you have my next postal order instead of one of these, old chap."
"Oh, gum," said Skinner. "Bunter's still expecting a postal order."
I say, I've got to pay Coker. I've got to pay £2, Smithy.
Bunter suddenly remembered that.
And now I've got £2, and I'm bound to pay up. Oh, look here, Smithy, you can have my next postal order when it comes.
I shall be getting my old age pension by then.
Beast!
"Here comes Henry," murmured Bob Cherry. "Buck up, Bunter, if you're going to shell out." Billy Bunter did not buck up. Mr. Quelch arrived and let in his form, and the postal orders were still safe in Billy Bunter's pocket when he rolled to his place in the form room. Billy Bunter sat in third school with a worried wrinkle in his fat brow. Bunter had £2 in his pocket. They were burning a hole there. It might have been supposed by anyone who did not know Bunter that a fellow who had a pressing bill of £2 to meet, and who had unexpectedly received that very sum as a gift, would have hastened to pay that little bill and have done with it. But now that the remittance had so surprisingly come, Coker's little bill was relegated to the back of Bunter's fat mind. His fat thoughts ran on tuck. The amount of tuck that could be obtained for 2 whole quid was dazzling to the fat owl. It was maddening to be kept in the form room, listening to Quelch's drone, with £2 in his pocket, and a tuck shop just across the quad. The moment Bunter was released, it was certain that the fattest figure at Greyfriars School would shoot across the quad like a stone from a catapult. It was no wonder that there was a worried wrinkle in his brow. He had to sit it out in the form room for an hour. After that, he had to dodge Smithy somehow. Bunter wondered whether that endless lesson ever would be over. But all things come to an end. Even the weariest river winds somewhere safe to sea, and at length the welcome hour struck. Bunter jumped up in a hurry. He was anxious to be first out of the form room, with a wary eye on the bounder, but Quelch did not immediately give the word of dismissal, his gimlet eye fixed on the fat owl.
"Bunter?"
Oh, yes, sir,"
groaned Bunter.
"I have a word to say to you, Bunter. I have spoken to you several times on the subject of the sum to be paid for the comestibles abstracted from a 5th form boy's study. On each occasion you have told me that you were expecting a remittance from home, and I have allowed the matter to stand over. You received a letter from your father this morning, Bunter. Did it contain the remittance you have assured me you were expecting to receive, or did it not?"
"Oh, no, sir. I mean, yes, sir. I mean, oh, scissors."
"If you have the money, Bunter, place it on my desk at once."
Bunter blinked at Quelch dolorously. His fat hand in his pocket clutched 2 postal orders, each for £1. There was no help for it. He rolled to his form master's desk. 2 crumpled and rather sticky postal orders were placed thereon. Mr. Quelch glanced at them.
"It will be necessary for you to cash these, Bunter, as they are made out in your name. Do so, and bring the money to my study."
Oh, yes, sir,"
gasped Bunter. And the postal orders were in the sticky pocket again, as Bunter rolled out of the form room with the rest of the remove.
"Bob, old chap."
Hello.
Bob Cherry was going into the quad when a fat paw clutched at his sleeve. He halted good-naturedly and gave the owl of the remove an inquiring glance.
I say, Bob, Smithy's waiting just outside the house, mumbled Bunter.
Is he? Said Bob. He glanced out into the sunny quad. Herbert Vernon Smith was in sight, talking with Redwing and Hazeldine. Bob glanced at Bunter's worried face. "Oh, what about it, Fatty?"
I say, old chap, he's waiting for me, breathed Bunter. You know he makes out that he's going to have one of my postal orders.
"You fat chump," laughed Bob. "Smithy was only pulling your leg. He wouldn't pick up your postal order with a pair of tongs." And Bob Cherry chuckled and went on his way. Bunter blinked out of the doorway again to ascertain whether Smithy was still there. As Bunter blinked out, Smithy walked in.
"Oh!"
gasped Bunter. He was fairly caught. "You fat chump," said Smithy. "Why haven't you started for the post office?"
"Eh?"
Bunter was not thinking of the post office. He was thinking of the tuck shop. Mrs. Mimble would cash those postal orders for him in exchange for tuck. "You've time to walk to Friardale and back before dinner. The sooner you cash those postal orders and hand the cash over to Quelch, the better."
I'm just going, Smithy."
And Bunter went. He was relieved of his terrors of the bounder, and his fat face was cheerful again. But he did not roll in the direction of the gates. Smithy had given him good advice, but good advice was a sheer waste on Bunter. The call of the tuck shop was too insistent. Bunter rolled across the quad, heading for Mrs. Mimble's establishment behind the elms. "Oh, here you are," said a familiar voice. Bunter blinked at Peter Todd standing in the doorway of the school shop. Peter, it seemed, was waiting for him there.
"Here I am, Peter,"
said Bunter, with a rather dubious blink at his study mate.
I'm going to stand you some sausage rolls, Peter."
"You're not," said Peter. "You're coming for a walk with me, old fat man." He linked a lean arm in Bunter's fat one. "This way."
"Let go, you beast!"
howled Bunter. "Nice walk down to Friardale."
"I'm not going to Friardale."
"Your mistake," said Peter. "You are." Peter Todd walked off towards the gates, taking Bunter's fat arm with him. Billy Bunter accompanied the arm. A parting would have been painful. The postal orders were duly cashed in Friardale. Billy Bunter rolled out of the post office with 2-pound notes in the sticky pocket. All the way back to Greyfriars, Bunter was revolving plans in his fat mind to dodge Peter when they arrived at the school, but Peter was undodgeable. His lean arm was affectionately linked in Bunter's as they walked across the quad, and they went into the house together.
I say, Peter, you needn't come with me to Quelch,"
breathed Bunter as he was led to master's studies.
"Will you let go my arm?"
he hissed. "Yes," said Peter, "when you're in Quelch's study."
"Beast!"
groaned Bunter. Peter tapped at the remove master's door with his free hand. He opened it when Mr. Quelch called, "Come in." Bunter gave a last desperate wrench at his arm. Then he was pushed into the study.
"Oh, it is you, Bunter?" said Mr. Quelch. "You may lay the money on the table, Bunter. I shall see that it's handed to Coca."
2-pound notes were laid on the remove master's table. Billy Bunter gave them a last longing blink. Then he rolled out of the study. "Why not Bunter?" "Eh? What?" Harry Wharton asked the question in number 1 study. The famous five had gathered there for tea, and the talk naturally ran on cricket. The match at Highcliffe was due in a few days, and it rather filled the minds of the remove cricketers. "All the same, why not Bunter?" repeated the captain of the remove. "We're playing the 4th form tomorrow afternoon. Bunter is a lazy toad and a slacking fat frog and a prevaricating fat porker," admitted the captain of the remove. "But he would jump at playing in a match to let Quelch see him doing it. See? After all, we could beat the 4th a man short, and that's what it would come to," remarked Frank Nugent. "Exactly. But what's the game?" demanded Johnny Bull. "Is Bunter to be rewarded for slacking and frousting and fibbing by being given a place in the team?" "Not precisely. But you know he's up against it," said Harry. "He's told everybody who'll listen, and everybody who won't as well, that he's got to blow away for good at the end of the term unless he gets a good report from Quelch. No reason why we shouldn't help a lame dog over a stile if we can."
"I say, you fellows."
The door of number 1 study was pushed open, and Billy Bunter's fat face looked in. He blinked in rather cautiously. Fascinating fellow as he was, Bunter knew that he was not always persona grata in a remove study at tea-time. But for once, rather to his surprise, he received a hearty greeting. "Roll in, old barrel," called out the captain of the remove. "Just the man I want to see." Bunter rolled in promptly, his fat face eager.
"What have you got?"
he asked. His eyes and spectacles roved over the table.
"I say, you fellows, you seem to have finished tea. Anything more in the cupboard?"
"No. Think you could possibly think of anything but feeding for a minute or two?" asked Harry. "If so, we'll talk about cricket."
"Oh, cricket,"
said Bunter. The eagerness died out of his fat face. "I thought of giving you a chance in the 11, old fat man. Chance for you to show Quelch that you're not such a slacker at games, see?"
"Oh,"
said Bunter. He sniffed.
"It's taken you a jolly long time to find out that I can play cricket, Harry Wharton."
"Eh?"
"I'm not sure I can play,"
said Bunter loftily.
"This is jolly sudden. You've left me out ever since the matches started. Now all of a sudden you find out you want me."
yelled the co. Harry Wharton's face was quite a study.
"Still, I'll see what I can do,"
said Bunter generously.
"I'd like Quelch to see me playing for the school, as I told you. Good at games sounds well."
They all roared again. "You howling ass!" cried the captain of the remove. "Do you think I was thinking of the Highcliffe match, you benighted bloater?"
"Eh, weren't you?"
asked Bunter. "We're playing the 4th tomorrow, and that's your game, fathead."
"Now look here, Wharton, it's no good wasting a man of my form in a footling match with Temple's crowd. I prefer the Highcliffe match," declared Bunter. "I may as well speak plainly. Now you've found out I can play cricket, I'll play at Highcliffe, or I won't play at all. And that's that."
"OK, you won't play at all," said the captain of the remove. "Roll out of this study before I kick you."
"Oh, really, Wharton?"
"You fat, frumptuous, footling foozler. I was going to put you in the form match to give you a leg up with Quelch, but I'd rather not, see? Now roll away."
"Oh,"
said Bunter, blinking at him. It was borne in upon Bunter's fat mind that his form captain hadn't suddenly discovered his qualities as a cricketer.
Oh, well, I don't mind if I play in the form match, old chap."
"I do. Shut the door after you."
"Yah! It's a go, Wharton. Rely on me,"
said Bunter.
"I've got rather a lot of engagements on Saturday afternoon. You know how it is when a fellow's popular. His time's never really his own. But I'll cut everything and play cricket. I'm your man."
W.G. Bunter? Remove men were always keen to see the cricket list when it was posted up in the rag, but never before had they greeted it with an outburst of merriment. Bunter could see no cause for the merriment that greeted his name in the list for the form match. He was glad to see it there, but he regarded it not as his due, but as a small instalment of his due. Still, it was something to go on with. Even in a game with Temple and Co. of the 4th, a fellow could show his powers. Could Quelch make out that Bunter was slack at games, when roars of cheering woke all the echoes of Greyfriars, as Bunter piled up runs for his side? Obviously, Quelch couldn't. As yet, however, there were no roars of cheering. There were only roars of laughter. "We can beat the 4th a man short," said Harry. "Oh, yes, well, that's what it comes to," agreed Smithy. "Mind your eye when Bunter gets hold of a bat, though. He's liable to brain anybody in the offing."
"Oh, really, Smithy?"
"And for the love of Mike, don't let him handle the ball. Nobody's life would be safe."
"You'd like to keep me in the shade, wouldn't you, Smithy?"
jeered Bunter.
"You don't want the fellows to see how I bowl. You don't want to risk being dropped from the Highcliffe match to make room for a better man."
"Oh, holy smoke. We're playing Bunter for his batting," said the captain of the remove, laughing. "Lesser lights like Hurry and Brownie can look after the bowling."
"That won't do, Wharton,"
said Bunter firmly. "Eh?"
"I said it won't do. I admit that batting's my long suit, as you seem to have found out. I don't brag of my bowling,"
said Bunter, blinking round at grinning faces.
"I'm not a fellow to brag. All I say is that I bowl better than any other man in the remove."
"Modesty, thy name is Bunter," chuckled Frank Nugent.
"Well, I don't believe in false modesty," said Bunter. "Just give me 1 over, Wharton, and after that you'll be glad to give me all the bowling you can. Hat-tricks are hat-tricks.
Oh, my only summer bonnet, gurgled Bob Cherry. OK, old barrel, said the captain of the remove. We can afford to chuck away an over as well as a wicket with Temple's crowd. You shall bowl an over, and if you bag a wicket, you shall bowl as many overs as you like afterwards.
Good,
said Bunter.
That'll be all right for Quelch.
Done your lines, Fatty? Asked Peter Todd when the owl of the remove rolled into number 7 study for prep that evening. Bunter, as often happened, had lines. In form that morning, Bunter had translated from the Latin "o dea" as "oh dear," which had not seemed to satisfy Quelch somehow.
I've had no time, Peter,
answered Bunter. Well, that means detention tomorrow afternoon, then. Bunter winked, a fat wink.
That's all right, he said. Quelch wouldn't keep a man away from a match. I shall explain to Quelchy that I'm wanted to play for the form.
After class the following morning, Mr. Quelch duly inquired for those lines.
Have you written your lines, Bunter?
Oh, no, sir,
Very well. You will write them this afternoon, Bunter, before you leave the house.
But I'm playing cricket this afternoon, sir. I'm wanted to play for the form, sir. The fellows are relying upon me, sir.
Mr. Quelch looked at him long and hard.
My name's up in the cricket list in the rag, sir. Wharton posted it yesterday. I've been coming on a lot of cricket, sir, ever since you talked to me in your study, sir.
Indeed,
said Mr. Quelch very dryly.
Very well, Bunter. Your lines may stand over till Monday. If you are seeking to amend your accustomed slack and lazy ways, I certainly desire to encourage you. You may go.
Billy Bunter rolled out of the form room, leaving his form master looking quite thoughtful. This really looked like a sign of amendment in Bunter, and signs of amendment in Bunter were so few and far between that Quelch was naturally pleased to see one. Mr. Quelch even resolved to walk down to Little Side that afternoon and see for himself how much Bunter had improved. Harry Wharton breathed hard, and he breathed deep. Cecil Reginald Temple, the captain of the 4th, had won the toss and elected to take first knock. 10 men of the remove were ready to go into the field. The 11th was conspicuous by his absence. The fattest figure at Greyfriars School was not in the offing, neither was it to be discerned on the horizon. Merely to give the egregious fat owl a leg up with Quelch, the captain of the remove had put him in the team. Even Bunter might have been expected to turn up, but he hadn't. "Where the thump can he be?" growled Wharton. "He can't have had another postal order," remarked Johnny Bull. "If he has, he's in the tuck shop." Guffawed the bounder. "He hasn't had a postal order, but Morley had a parcel today." "Oh, rot. Even that fat villain wouldn't cut a cricket match to snoop Morley's tuck." "Wouldn't he just?" grinned the bounder. "Why, I saw it in Morley's study. Tremendous jar of jolly old homemade jam from the jolly old home farm. Think Bunter could resist that?" Harry Wharton laughed, exasperated as he was. Really, it didn't seem a lot of use trying to give Bunter a leg up with Quelch. "Well, we'll give him a chance," said Harry. "We can field a substitute. I'll speak to Temple." Bunter did not appear, and the remove went into the field with a substitute in the place of that valuable recruit. The 4th form innings lasted 50 minutes with an inglorious total of 36 runs, after which the question was again asked, "Where's Bunter?" "It can't be Morley's jam," said Bob Cherry. "Even Bunter can't be scoffing jam all this time. Hello, hello, hello. Here's Morley." Lord Morleverer had ambled down to the ground to see how the cricketers were getting on, and Bob hailed him as he sank gracefully into a seat. "Missed anything from your study, Morley?" "Yes." "Was it jam?" "Yes." "Seen Bunter?" "Not since I kicked him about half an hour ago in his study. I mean to say, I wouldn't mind a chap helping himself, but snooping the whole jar, you know." Their laughter echoed round the field. The remove proceeded to take their knock. That priceless recruit was last in the batting order, so there seemed ample time for him to roll down to the ground in time for his innings. But Bunter did not roll. The remove innings lasted a good deal longer than Temple & Co.'s, and the score was at 90 for 6 wickets when Mr. Quelch arrived on the scene.
How is the game going, Wharton?
asked Mr. Quelch with a kindly interest. Oh, good, sir. The Fourth made 36 in their first innings, and we're 90 for 6 wickets.
Oh, very good. Very good indeed, said Mr. Quelch benevolently. And how has Bunter shaped, Wharton? I was rather interested to know.
Wharton stammered a little. Bunter's last man in, sir. He won't be wanted just yet.
Bunter, I suppose, was in the field in the fourth form innings,
said Mr. Quelch quite sharply. Well, no, sir. We fielded a substitute.
Am I to understand, Wharton, that Bunter has not been here at all?
I think something's delayed him, sir.
Will you answer my question directly, Wharton?
Inquired Mr. Quelch in his sharpest form-room voice. No, sir. I haven't seen him. Mr. Quelch said no more, but his countenance was expressive. Bunter had been excused detention because he was playing cricket, and evidently he was not playing cricket. The remove-master watched the game for a few minutes, and then walked back to the house. Where was Bunter? Was this sheer lazy slacking, or was there some adequate explanation? Quelch was a just man. Bunter was going to have every chance. He looked in the rag. Skinner and Snoop were there, and they were grinning. Mr. Quelch glanced at them.
"Can you tell me where Bunter is?" he asked.
"In his study, sir," answered Skinner. "I saw him there a little while ago."
"Thank you."
Mr. Quelch rustled along the passage to number 7. As he reached that study, he gave quite a start. From within came a strange sound, a sound of woe.
Oh, Lord, no!
The door was open. No doubt Skinner had left it so when he looked in. Mr. Quelch gazed into number 7's study.
"Bless my soul,"
he gasped. In the study armchair was stretched a rotund form. It was that of Billy Bunter. His face was ghastly. It looked as it might have looked on a Channel steamer on a rough day. Bunter's fat paws, both sticky, were pressed to his extensive waistcoat, and he groaned. He gurgled. Something evidently was amiss with Bunter. The gimlet eyes spotted what was amiss. On the study table stood an enormous jam jar, nearly empty. Beside it lay a sticky tablespoon.
"Bless my soul,"
repeated Mr. Quelch.
"Bunter?"
Gasped Bunter. He did not rise from the armchair. He couldn't. He sprawled where he was, with a lackluster blink at Mr. Quelch through his big spectacles.
"So this," said Mr. Quelch, "this is how you have been occupied, Bunter, when you were especially excused from detention to play cricket. You have been eating jam, which I have little doubt you have purloined from some other study, to such an extent, such a revolting extent, that you have made yourself ill. Whose jam was that, Bunter?"
It wasn't Morley's,
moaned Bunter.
He gave it to me. He never kicked me when he found it here, sir. At least it was only a joke.
"This," said Mr. Quelch, "this decides the matter definitely, Bunter. Your report—"
I was going to play cricket, sir. I was only going to sample it, sir. I'm awfully keen on cricket, sir.
"Your report this term will be accompanied by a letter from me, strongly recommending your father to take you away. This, Bunter, is the last straw."
"Ha!" snapped Mr. Quelch, and he stalked out of number 7's study. Billy Bunter hardly heeded him. Billy Bunter had been scoffing jam not wisely, but too well. Billy Bunter was feeling as if earthquakes and tornadoes were battling within his podgy circumference. Billy Bunter was past caring whether he left Greyfriars or not. He was past caring for anything. "The jolly old game's up, Bunter," said Peter Todd.
Beast!
"And you jolly well deserve it," added Peter.
Oh, really, Toddy?
Billy Bunter could not see that he deserved it, but there was no doubt that, as Peter put it, the die was cast and the game was up. Bunter's report that term was settled now, in advance. Quelch was fed up. Quelch, of course, would not have expressed it like that. Probably he would have said that his patience was exhausted. But there was no doubt about the fact Bunter had had his chance. Of all his sins, and their name was legion, not one had been amended. He was as lazy at prep, as slack in class, as unpunctual, as remiss as ever. He was still an incorrigible snooper of tuck. In matters of food, he still failed to distinguish the difference between meum and teum, and in matters of veracity, the difference between facts and fibs. And at games he was still the slacker he had always been, not merely dodging practice, but even when picked to play in a match, preferring jam in the study. On Monday, in form, he read his fate in Quelch's gimlet eye. When, in the geography lesson, he stated that Brussels was the capital of Poland, Quelch only gave him a look. It was really as if Quelch considered himself already practically done with that member of his form. At tea-time, a morose owl rolled into number 1 study. Harry Wharton reached for a cushion, but he remembered that Bunter was down on his luck, and dropped it again.
"Looks as if I'm going to get a bad report, after all I've done," said Bunter. "That means you won't see me next term."
"Oh, crumbs," said Harry.
"Well, perhaps Quelch will have something to remember me by," said Bunter. "I've done my best, you fellows know that, and it's made no difference. But the worm will turn," added Bunter darkly.
"Eh? What have you got in your fat head now?" exclaimed Harry Wharton.
"Oh, nothing."
They all laughed.
"I mean, I'm not going to tell you fellows," said the fat owl. I may be going to make Quelch feel sorry for himself, and I may not. I don't want to wind up here with a head's flogging, of course. I shall have to keep it dark."
"Keep what dark?" asked Bob.
"Oh, nothing. I'm not going to talk about it. It might get out, and I don't want Quelch to know what's coming to him. Still, Quelch may get a surprise when he walks over to Highcliffe tomorrow afternoon. He's certain to take the footpath across Courtfield Common, isn't he?"
"I suppose so, as it saves half the distance," said Harry. "But what the dickens—"
"Well, you know where the footpath goes through the common wood, in the middle of the common, branches right over the path, thick as billy-o? Well, who'd spot a chap in a tree over the footpath?"
"In a tree over the footpath?" repeated Bob Cherry blankly. "And what are you going to do in a tree over the footpath, you frabjous owl?"
"Oh, nothing," said Bunter. "But when Quelch comes stalking by under those branches, he may get a surprise, or he may not. A fellow may be perched up there with a bag of soot, and he may not."
"A bag of soot!" yelled the famous 5 with one voice.
Don't shout it all over the remove," said Bunter peevishly. "Think Quelch will feel sorry for himself when a bag of soot drops all of a sudden and bursts over his napper? What?"
"You dangerous lunatic!" gasped the captain of the remove. "Quelch would skin you like an eel if you mopped soot over his napper."
"How will he know?" grinned Bunter. "He won't see me up in the tree. He won't see anything with his eyes and nose and mouth bunged up with soot."
"You can't do it, you mad ass!" gasped Bob.
"Can't I?" jeered Bunter. "Think I'm going to have Quelch down on me all the term and giving me a bad report for nothing without giving him something to remember me by?
Look here, you potty porpoise."
"Sorry, can't stop. I've got to see Morley."
And Billy Bunter rolled out of number 1 study, leaving the famous 5 exchanging uneasy looks. "Nothing in it," said Bob, shaking his head. "Bunter's too jolly lazy to walk a mile to the common wood, and too jolly lazy to climb a tree if he did." "Yes, that's so," agreed Wharton. And the chums of the remove dismissed Bunter and his vengeful schemes from their minds, and resumed discussions of a much more important matter, the cricket match at Highcliffe School on the morrow.
"That's him,"
breathed Billy Bunter, regardless of grammar. Bunter's eyes gleamed behind his spectacles at the sound of a footstep below. It was a sunny afternoon, but in the little wood in the middle of Courtfield Common all was dusky. Harry Wharton and co., playing cricket at Highcliffe, did not remember the fat owl's existence. Had they remembered him, they would hardly have supposed that Bunter was where he now was. But Billy Bunter was in deadly earnest. He had rolled out of the school after dinner. By easy stages, taking frequent rests, he had crossed the open common to the little wood through which the footpath ran. Under the thick branches that met and mingled overhead from either side, that footpath was rather like a dusky green tunnel. After another long rest, Bunter had clambered up a gnarled old tree. He crawled out on a thick branch over the footpath. Thick foliage screened and hid him. In a fork of the branch, he parked a bag he had brought with him, a paper bag crammed with soot scraped from the study chimney. It was quite comfortable lying along that thick branch among the shady leaves. The fat junior lay there, at ease. All he had to do was to watch the footpath below through interstices in the foliage. As soon as Mr. Quelch came striding by, or stalking, as Bunter had described it, all he had to do was to drop the bag of soot. It was as safe as houses. Quelch, smothered with soot, would be in no state to seek the soot-hurler. Moreover, he was long past the tree-climbing stage of life. Quelch, black as a sweep, spluttering soot, would be left to splutter, while the fat owl escaped in the branches and dropped to safety at a distance. Bunter had it all cut and dried. His masterly brain had worked it all out. Bunter had been nearly an hour sprawling on that leafy branch. But sprawling on a branch was not really hard work, and he was patient. Now he heard a footstep. He blinked down through his big spectacles and the slits in the foliage below. He wanted to make sure, of course, that it was Quelch before he went into action. A figure came into sight below. It was not Quelch. "Oh!" breathed Bunter, and his fat heart gave a little jump as he saw who it was. He recognized that stubbly face with its red-rimmed eyes and twisted nose. It was the footpad who had robbed him weeks ago in Friardale Lane, when Mr. Quelch's walking-stick had come into play, the ruffian who had attacked the remove-master near Redcliffe, and on whose account the Courtfield constable had called at the school. Bunter knew him again at once, and as he recognized him, he was deeply thankful that he was safe out of sight, up a tree. The man was coming along hurriedly, as if he'd suddenly run into the little wood from the open common. Bunter was anxious for him to pass on and disappear, but Nosey Jenkins did not pass on. He came to a halt, looking back and listening. Then, to Billy Bunter's surprise, he moved off the footpath and blotted himself out of view behind a massive trunk, the trunk of the very tree whose branches concealed Billy Bunter. He vanished from Bunter's view, leaving the fat junior staring. What the man's game was a puzzle to the fat owl. Bunter's powerful brain was not quick on the uptake, but slowly it dawned upon him what the man's action meant, what it could only mean. The footpad was lying in wait. He had spotted someone crossing the common towards the wood. Bunter felt his fat heart jump again as he realized that he was about to look down upon a scene of violence.
Oh, scissors,
he breathed.
Oh, crikey.
But he dared not breathe a sound aloud. The mere sight of Nosey Jenkins terrified him. The idea of drawing his attention made Bunter's fat heart almost die in his breast. He gave a little start as footsteps again came to his ear. Someone was coming. Billy Bunter shuddered. From the bottom of his fat heart he wished that he'd never thought of this masterly scheme for making Quelch sorry for himself. He wondered who the coming man was. Then, suddenly, he guessed. Quelch, of course! He had been expecting Quelch every minute. That awful ruffian had attacked Quelch near Redcliffe from motives of revenge. Now he had found another chance, and Quelch was walking fairly into his hands. "Oh, law!" breathed Bunter. A moment more, and a tall, lean, angular frame came in sight. It was Mr. Quelch coming along with his vigorous stride, his walking-stick under his arm. Even as Bunter blinked down in terror through the leaves at the tall figure passing under the tree, there was a rustle, a sudden spring, and Quelch went over headlong in the grip of the man who'd leapt from cover. Oh! gasped Mr. Quelch. "Oh!" groaned Bunter. He blinked down, frozen with horror. Quelch was sprawling in the grass on his back. His stick had fallen under him. The man with the twisted nose was upon him, a knee planted on his chest, pinning him down. "Gotcha!" snarled Nosey Jenkins. Mr. Quelch utterly helpless, stared up at the threatening, stubbly face. He made an effort to throw the ruffian off, and Nosey Jenkins rocked. But it was in vain. Quelch was taken at too utter a disadvantage. He was helpless, at the malicious ruffian's mercy.
"Setting the coppers after a bloke," said Nosey Jenkins. "Laying into a covey with a walking stick and setting the coppers after him. What, if I don't crack your blinking nut this time?"
Up went the ruffian's right arm. There was a short, thick cudgel in his grip. And cracked Mr. Quelch's nut indubitably would have been, but for a sudden and wholly unexpected interruption. Billy Bunter never knew how he did it. Perhaps somewhere under Billy Bunter's layers of fat there was a spot of pluck, genuine old British pluck. He didn't stop to think. Had he done so, perhaps he never would have done it at all, for there was no doubt that the hapless fat owl was in a funk, the bluest of funks. Yet he did it. Clamped on the branch over the footpath directly above the startling scene below, the owl of the remove blinked down in terror, almost paralyzed by what he saw. He couldn't help Quelch. He couldn't try to help him. One lick of the footpad's cudgel would knock him out if he jumped down and tried it on. But as that cudgel went up over the helpless and unprotected nut of Mr. Quelch, Bunter, whether he could or not, suddenly did. He dropped right on Nosey Jenkins. What happened, Nosey didn't know. It was so entirely unexpected and unlooked for. One moment Nosey Jenkins was pinning Mr. Quelch down with the stick uplifted to crack his nut. The next, something extremely heavy and very solid squashed him down in the grass beside Quelch, landing on him with the effect of a particularly powerful steam hammer. Nosey crumpled and sprawled under that solid weight. He gave a faint moan as he collapsed. He wriggled gurgling in the grass. He was winded to the wide. There was hardly a breath left in Nosey. He was dazed, dizzy, half-stunned, and wholly winded, and he wriggled in helpless anguish. Bunter rolled in the grass. Mr. Quelch sat up. He was as surprised as Nosey. Then he saw Bunter. He staggered to his feet, grabbing up his walking stick as he did so in case it should be wanted, but it was not wanted. Nosey was out of the fight. Mr. Quelch gave Nosey Jenkins one look. Then he gazed at Bunter. Bunter sat up in his turn. He was breathless, he was dizzy, he was bewildered. He gasped and spluttered and grabbed at the spectacles that had slid down his little fat nose. "Bunter!" cried Mr. Quelch.
"You!"
gasped Bunter. Quelch glanced upward. He realized that Bunter must have dropped from the branch above.
"Bunter, you were in that tree?"
"Oh, no,"
gasped Bunter. He set his spectacles straight and blinked at his form master, remembering the soot.
"Oh, no, sir. I wasn't. I like climbing trees, sir."
He scrambled to his feet with a terrified blink at the sprawling, gurgling, helpless Nosey. But even Bunter could see that Nosey was no longer dangerous. Moreover, on his feet, with his walking stick in his hand, Mr. Quelch was much more than a match for Nosey. Bunter was reassured. He couldn't quite understand the expression on Mr. Quelch's countenance. He blinked very uneasily at Quelch. The soot was on his fat conscience. Still, he realized that Quelch couldn't possibly know anything about the bag of soot parked in the fork of the branch above.
"You have been of very material assistance to me, Bunter."
To Bunter's relief, Quelch's voice was very mild. He was not barking at a fellow, as usual.
I wasn't afraid of that brute, sir. I couldn't let him cosh you with that stick, so I jumped down on him, sir. Oh, law!"
Mr. Quelch smiled. That Bunter had been frightened out of his fat wits was evident, but that really made it all the more to his credit that he had somehow screwed his courage up to the sticking point and waded in to his form master's rescue. Mr. Quelch knew that he'd had a narrow escape from serious damage. He knew that he owed it to Bunter. What his form master was thinking as he gazed at him, Billy Bunter did not know. But the smile that glimmered on the crusty countenance rather reassured him. It indicated that Quelch was not, at least, waxy.
"You have acted with courage, Bunter,"
said Mr. Quelch at last.
"Oh,
I am very much obliged to you, Bunter.
Oh,
repeated Bunter blankly. He wondered dizzily whether this could really be Quelch speaking.
I shall certainly refer to this incident, which is very much to your credit, in your term's report, Bunter.
Oh.
And most certainly I shall not advise your father, Bunter, to take you away from the school.
Oh.
I trust, Bunter, that in your general conduct you will endeavour to justify the better opinion I have formed of you.
Yes, sir.
And now, said Mr. Quelch, please go to Courtfield as quickly as you can to the police station, report what has occurred, and request them to send a constable here to take this man into custody.
And Billy Bunter rolled off to Courtfield in high spirits. Nosey Jenkins recovered his wind before the constable arrived from Courtfield, but as a grim-faced schoolmaster was standing over him with a walking-stick ready for action, he'd no choice but to remain where he was until the constable arrived. After which, Mr. Quelch, in a thoughtful mood, resumed his walk to Highcliffe, at which time Billy Bunter rolled home to Greyfriars in a state of mind that could only be described as happy and glorious. "Why didn't you roll over and see us beat Highcliffe, Bunter?" said Bob Cherry.
Eh? Did you beat them?
asked Bunter. 15 runs, said Harry Wharton.
That all?
asked Bunter.
Bit different from that if you played me, I fancy.
More than a bit, I think, agreed the captain of the Remove, laughing. Jolly good game, said Bob. Highcliffe were in great form, but we pulled it off. Quelch saw the finish.
Oh, you've seen Quelch?
asked Bunter.
Did he tell you that I saved his life this afternoon?
Eh? What? Which?
Didn't he tell you? Well, I think he might have mentioned it, said Bunter with a grunt. After all, it's not the sort of thing that happens every day, is it?
No, not quite, said Bob Cherry. What are you burbling about now, fathead?
Oh, I happened to save his life, that's all,
said Bunter carelessly, quite as if life-saving was the kind of thing he did in leisure moments without attaching any great importance thereto. That's Bunter's latest, explained Skinner. You fellows haven't heard. It's his best so far. Harry Wharton and co. had found Bunter in the rag when they came in. Other fellows were there, apparently in a state of merriment. Now the returned cricketers joined in the merriment.
Oh, cackle, said Bunter disdainfully. I can tell you that it's all right for me now. Quelch ain't down on me now I've saved his life. He's going to give me a jolly good report. He's going to ask my pater, as a special favour, to keep me on at Greyfriars. He said so.
I can hear him saying it, grinned Peter Todd.
You'd have heard him if you'd been there, said Bunter. He put his hand on my shoulder and said, a gallant lad.
Quelch did, shrieked Bob.
He said, Greyfriars cannot afford to lose you, Bunter.
Go it, chuckled Smithy. Let's hear some more.
I'm telling you exactly what Quelch said. Ha ha!
They all roared. The exactfulness is not terrific, my esteemed fat Bunter, chuckled Hurry Jamset Ram Singh. But how did you save his life? asked Johnny Bull. Did you turn away suddenly when he was just going to see your features, or what?
Yeah! You see, you fellows, that man with the boko, the man the Bobby was after, got Quelch in the wood on the common, explained Bunter. Well, I was there. He sprang on Quelch like a tiger, and I sprang on him like a,
Like a hippopotamus? asked Peter Todd.
Like a lion, hooted Bunter. I sprang on him like a lion and bore him to the earth in a grip of iron. Heedless of his knife, I pinned him to the earth. Oh, he had a knife about a foot long, sharp as a razor. Did I care?
You wouldn't, chuckled Nugent.
Well, I didn't, said Bunter disdainfully. I simply took no notice of it. I sprang on him and seized him and bore him to the earth just in time to keep him from cracking Quelch's nut with his bludgeon. He had a tremendous big bludgeon with a huge knob on the end. It missed me by the fraction of an inch as I sprang. It was a jolly narrow escape. Yeah, and I felt the wind of the bullet, I mean the bludgeon, as it barely missed. He was holding Quelch down. Holding Quelch down? Yelled Bob. Yes, he had him down, holding him in a grip of steel.
Some desperado, said Bob. With a knife in one hand and a bludgeon in the other, he was holding Quelch down. And what hand did he use that for, Bunty?
I mean...
Bunter stammered. Bunter never could tell a plain, unvarnished tale. Often he overdid the details.
I mean, the fact is...
Never mind the facts. Facts aren't in your line, old fat bean. Keep to the story.
If you fellows
fellows don't believe me, roared Bunter indignantly. Believe you? Oh, scissors! Well, I did it, snorted Bunter. I got the villain and saved Quelch's life. The only one he had, too, said Bob. Good work. Yeah, I jolly well did it. And when that desperate ruffian lay senseless at my feet, Quelch put his hand on my head, as well as your shoulder, I mean on my shoulder, and said, "Oh, crikey!"
Bunter broke off with that exclamation as he discerned a lean and angular figure in the doorway of the rag, looking in. All the juniors looked round at Mr. Quelch. They wondered what had brought their form master to the rag, and whether he had caught any of Billy Bunter's thrilling tale of derring-do. If he had, they expected to hear the thunder roll. But the remove master's expression was quite placable.
"Bunter."
His voice was kindly in tone.
"Oh, yes, sir,"
gasped Bunter. Mr. Quelch walked in. He had a box, rather a large cardboard box, in his hand. To the general astonishment, he gave Bunter a kindly smile.
"Bunter, I have brought you this small gift, not as a reward, of course, for your courageous act this afternoon, but as a token of my good opinion."
"Oh, thank you, sir,"
gasped Bunter. Mr. Quelch glanced round at the staring juniors. They were wondering dizzily whether there might be a word of truth, just one word, in the startling tale related by the fat owl. Has Bunter done anything, sir?" asked Bob.
"Certainly he has," said Mr. Quelch. "I was attacked this afternoon by a dangerous tramp, and Bunter, who by a fortunate chance had climbed a tree on the spot, jumped down, falling on the man's head and temporarily disabling him. I am very much obliged to Bunter."
And Mr. Quelch, with an uncommonly gracious smile to the fattest member of his form, walked out of the rag. Bunter was left with the box in his fat hands, blinking. "Well, my only summer bonnet," said Bob. "Wonders will never cease. I'll bet you never told Quelch why you were up that tree, you fat villain."
"I say, you fellows, I wonder what's in this box."
Billy Bunter was not long in ascertaining what was in the box. It was packed to the brim with toffees. Bunter blinked at it. He beamed at it. He grabbed at the contents and transferred a considerable quantity of the same to the largest mouth in the remove.
I say, you fellows,"
his voice was a little muffled,
"these toffees are prime. I say, Quelch is no fool. He knows how to treat a fellow who saved his life. These toffees are topping."
And they all laughed. Evidently Quelch had guessed the kind of gift that Bunter would appreciate. Bunter gobbled and beamed.
"I say, you fellows, have some of these toffees. There's lots and lots and lots. I say, Quelch ain't such a beast."
Oh, Bunter choked and coughed and recovered.
"I say, have some, you fellows."
And the fellows chuckled and had some. It was a happy and sticky owl. The toffees were good, and almost as good as the toffees was the knowledge that Quelch had relented, and that the remove was not going to lose its brightest ornament, that next term the happy owl would still be Billy Bunter of Greyfriars School.
That was Martin Jarvis reading Billy Bunter of Greyfriars School by Frank Richards. You may like to know that Martin Jarvis has also read Just William Home for the Holidays by Richmal Crompton on CSA Telltapes. If you have difficulty in obtaining this title, or indeed any other title on our list, which you will find on the reverse of our inlay card, then please write to us direct, enclosing a stamped addressed envelope. You'll find the CSA Telltapes address on your inlay card with this tape. Thank you for listening to CSA Telltapes.